Yes, welcome. Today we are going to be learning biology. Biology. What is biology? Biology is the study of living organisms. The study of what? Biology is the study of living organisms or things. So what is biology? Biology is the study of living organisms or things. Living organisms or things. Biology is the study of living organisms or things. What are the things that are living? Human beings like me. Plants and animals, isn't it? Those are the living things. So when you study living things, you are doing what we call biology, the study of living things. You want to know how the living things come about. You understand? How the living things move from being small to big. How do they grow? What makes them to work? How do they survive in their environment? You study it. So whenever you're making such study, you call it what? Biology. You call it what? Biology. The study of living things. So you can also say that biology is the science of life. Biology is the science of what? Life. The word biology came from two Greek words. This word biology came from two Greek words. The first one is bio, and the second one is logos. You understand? And this word bio simply means life. The Greek word bio means what? Life. And logos simply means discourse, isn't it? You can also say it means what? Study. So when you study life, you do what we call biology. That's why we say that biology is the study of living organisms or living things. And we say that biology is the science of life. So biology came from two Greek words, bio and what? Logos. Bio meaning life, logos meaning what? Study. Is that clear? Yes. Now we look at the characteristics of living things. Characteristics of living things. Characteristics of living things. How do you say that something? You say that biology is the study of living things, isn't it? So how do you identify a living thing when you say it? So that when you study it, you know that you're doing biology. How do you differentiate a living thing from a non-living thing? So we differentiate them using their what? Characteristics. Using their what? Characteristics. So we're going to look at those characteristics. Number one characteristic of living thing is movement. 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 Movement simply means motion from one place to the what? Other. It could be a movement of body parts. Like you see, plants, do they move from one place to the other? But animals move from one place to the other. But plants have other ways of making their movement by growth or by movement of its parts. You understand? Whereas animals do locomotive movement from one point to the other. So both plants and animals move. Is that clear? Then number two is what we call respiration. Number two is what we call what? Respiration. So respiration simply means taking in air, isn't it? You take in air because air do a lot of work in our body. We need oxygen in our body, isn't it? So all those things, for you to be able to do respiration, all living things do respiration. So whether it's plants or animals, you have to do respiration. Whether it's plants or animal, there has to be what? Respiration. Respiration simply means taking in air. Then the other characteristics of living thing is what? Nutrition. Nutrition. Food is necessary for life to go on. Food is necessary for what? Life to go on. We animals, we eat food, isn't it? We need this food to supply us energy. Without energy, I cannot be talking to you. I will not have energy to do my work. So I need food to be burnt in my system in order to produce energy, which I use in working. Isn't it? When you get tired now, you will not be able to listen to my lectures because you lack energy. So for you to get energy, you need what? Food. You need nutrition. So movement from one point to the other, respiration, when you take in air, you understand? To supply what? Oxygen to the body. Then we need nutrition. Nutrition is, we talk about food, isn't it? Because from the food, that's where we get what? Energy. Even plants need energy for them to carry out their own activities, metabolic activity and other activities. Then number 4 is what we call irritability. Number 4 is what? Irritability. What is irritability? That's ability of a living thing to respond to stimulus. Irritability is the ability of a living thing to do what? Respond to stimulus. Then number 5 is what we call growth. Number 5 is what? Growth. Growth. What is growth? Increase in size, isn't it? Increase in size. So every living thing has to grow. It increases in size, whether it's plants or animal. When you are born, you used to be a kid, isn't it? Small time you become a teenager and then an adult. So that is growth. So let's continue. So number 6 is what we call excretion. Removal of toxic waste. Removal of what? Metabolic waste. Things that your body don't need. Those things that could cause sickness from your body, you need to do what? Excrete them. Like sweat. You see, when you're running around, you'll be sweating. You understand? When you're pressed, you go to the toilet, you ease yourself, isn't it? Excretion, removal of waste products. That's an important aspect of the characteristics of living things. Then number 7 is what we call what? Reproduction. Number 7 is reproduction. Reproduction, ability to give new ones, isn't it? Reproduction is the process whereby young ones of a given living organism are being brought to life, isn't it? Reproduction is another characteristic of living things. Then there's other ones like adaptation. That's the ability for a given organism to survive in a given environment. Is that clear? Adaptation, very, very important. Then we'll talk about competition. Competition, you understand? Living things, they tend to struggle anywhere they are. Like human being, you compete for food, isn't it? You compete for job opportunities. You compete for many things. Things are not easily gotten. You have to compete with fellow organisms for you to get what you want. Then finally, we have what we call death. Death. Every living organism dies after some time, whether it is plant or what? Animal. After some time, they do what? They pass out. So that is it. So those are the characteristics of living things. There is a summary that we used to use, then they call it Mr. What? Mr. Niger Diva. Is it? Here the M stands for what? Movement, isn't it? R stands for what? Respiration. N stands for what? Nutrition, isn't it? I stands for irritability. G stands for growth. E stands for excretion. R stands for what? Reproduction. And D stands for what? Death. So those are the basic characteristics of living things, except that we added adaptation and what? Competition. So anything that has these characteristics could be called living thing. Anything that has these characteristics could be called what? Living thing. And that's why plants and animals are living things, because both plants and animals exhibit all these characteristics. Is that clear? Is that clear? Good. Yes, welcome back to another biology class. Today we are going to be learning levels of organization of life and its complexity. Levels of organization of life and its what? Complexity. Levels of organization of life. We have 4 levels of organization of life. We have how many levels? 4 levels. Number 1 is what we call the first level. And this first level we have the word cell. The first level we have the word cell. Number 2 is what we call the second level. And this number 2 level is the word tissue. Number 3 is what we call the third level, and this level is known as the word organ. And lastly we have the word fourth level, known as the word system. So those are the levels that we have in life. So every organism is either you are the system of the cell, at the level of the cell, tissue, or what? Organ, as well as system. So first level is the cell. Is that clear? And it's made up of 1 or more cells. Organisms at this level are made up of 1 or more what? Cells. And what is a cell? Cell is the smallest single unit of life. Cell is what? Cell is the smallest single unit of life. That's what cell is. An example of organisms or parts of organisms at this level are: number 1, we have what we call spermatozoa. You understand? Spermatozoa is still at the cell level. You know that one thing come out from the sperm cells, isn't it? When the sperm cells meets with the ovum, isn't it? From the woman. When the sperm cell meets with the cell of the woman, the basic cell of the woman, then you start having a human being coming out, isn't it? Now we have what we call red blood cells. Red blood what? Cells. It's still at the cell level. You know, red blood cell is part of the blood, isn't it? It's one part of the blood, one type of the blood. Now we talk about the ovum. What is the ovum? What is ovum? Is that not the reproductive cell of the woman that meets with the spermatozoa in order to form the fetus, isn't it? So all of them are still at the first level of cell organization, known as the cell. The first level of organization of life, known as cell. Exactly. So the cell is very small. So other examples are things like plasmodium. What is plasmodium? Plasmodium, spermatozoa, ovum, red blood cells. So all these are in the first level. The first level normally have very large surface area to volume. Large surface area to volume ratio for the first level of organization of life. Now we talk about the second level, the tissue. So how do you come about the tissue? The tissue come about when cells of the same structure and function. When there are cells of the same cells that have similar structure and function, they form what we call tissue. Exactly. When we have cells of the same structure and function, we form what we call tissue. Cells of the same structure and what? Function. Cells of the same structure and what? Function. Example of this is the xylem. You know what the xylem is? The The xylem is seen in plants. Another example is the what? Phloem. Another example is bone. These are bones. The bones are tissue. Another example is what we call cartilage. Is that clear? Cartilage. Now, they also have surface area to volume. This is actually big. This is large surface area to volume. The surface area to volume ratio for tissue is lesser than that of cell. Is that clear? This one has the highest surface area to volume ratio. This one has lesser. Now we'll go to the third level of organization known as the organ. Known as the what? Organ. Now, when you have tissue, you understand? Performing group of tissue that come together to perform the same what? Function. They form what we call what? Organ. You see that in the first level we say that when you have more than one cell that perform the same function and they have similar structure, they form the word tissue. Now when when more tissue that perform similar function come together, they form what we call what? Organ. See, from here you get to this one, then you get to the third level. So what are the examples of organs? Examples of organs is what? The eye. The eye is the organ for what? Sight. Is the organ for what? Sight. We have the what? Ear. The ear is the organ for what? Hearing. We have kidney. Is that clear? So these are organs. Now finally, the fourth generation. Finally the what? Fourth level of organization. Fourth level is when several what? Organs act together. They form what we call what? System. When several organs act together to perform specific function, they act together to form system, performing what? A specific function. Is that clear? Example is what would like the transport system. You know the transport system is involved in blood circulation. Then we'll talk about digestive system. We'll talk about the muscular system and the circulatory system. You understand? So all those ones are systems. I will say that systems are made up of what? Organs. Systems are made up of what? Organs. Organs are made up of what? Tissue. Isn't it? Organs are made up of what? Tissues. Tissues are made up of what? Cells. Tissues are made up of what? Cells. So these are the levels of what? Organization. The cell has the highest surface area to what? Volume ratio. Followed by what? Tissue. Followed by what? Organs. And followed by what? System. So these are the four levels of organization of life. The cell, the tissue, the organ, and the what? System. When similar cells function together to perform similar function, we call them what? Tissue. When several tissue come together to perform specific function, we call it what? Organ. Then when some organ or several organs come together to perform specific function, we call it what? System. So if you look at transport system, you see that transport system has many organs that come together to form the transport system. Is that clear? Then when you go to the eye, you see that the eye has plenty tissue, different tissues in the eye. Is that clear? And when you go to the bone, you see that the bone is made up of plenty cells. Is that clear? But the smallest is the what? Cell. That's why we say that the cell is the smallest single unit of what? Life. The cell is the smallest single unit of life. That's why when the sperm cell is still a cell. It's very small. It's a cell. But when it meets with the ovum, it forms the fetus. Is that clear? At the level of the fetus, it's no longer in the level of cell because it has metamorphosed into greater cell organization. So the 4 levels of life organization, we talk about the cell, tissue, organ, and what? Systems. Is that clear? So please carry on. Yes, welcome. Today we are going to be learning classification of living things. Today we are going to be learning what? Classification of living things. Classification of living things. How living things are grouped from the other living things. Is that clear? We have human beings. Human beings are living things, isn't it? Plants and animals are also living things. But there are some characteristics or some features in human beings that are different from those of plants and animals. There are some characteristics or features in human beings that are different from that of fish. Fishes are also living things, isn't it? Goat is a living thing, but they don't have the same similar features as human beings. So whenever you're classifying human living things, you're trying to group them into similar groups with similar features. You can see that human beings are looking almost like monkeys, isn't it? They look more like monkeys than they look like goats. They look more like monkeys than they look like snake. You know the animal called centipede and millipede. They look similar, isn't it? When you see a fowl, you understand? When you see something like ostrich and other birds, birds look similar, isn't it? Human beings look similar. So when you classify, you bring living things that look similar into one group or one category. That is classification. So classification of living things. Classification of living things involves placing living things into groups that have certain features in common, which distinguish them from other groups. You understand? You put them in groups. When you see birds are in one group. Fishes are in one group of classification. Human beings are in one group, isn't it? So when you place them in such groups, then you're doing what we call classification. The system used in classification of living things was introduced by a Swiss scientist known as Carl von Linné. Known as what? Carl von Linné. Known as Carl von Linné. Classification of living things starts with classifying living things into 2 kingdoms. Is that clear? Into what? 2 what? Kingdoms. 2 kingdoms. And these kingdoms are what? Plants and what? Animals. That's the 2 main kingdoms that living things are classified into. Plants and what? Animals. Then the plants have what we call division. The plants have what we call what? Divisions. Whereas the animals have what we call phylum. Have what we call what? Phylum. Then from there it goes down to other classification, which I'm going to illustrate with the next diagram that I'm going to draw. You understand? Classification of living things. Classification of living things involves placing living things into groups. You're placing living things into groups that have certain features in common. You understand? Most of the birds, they have four and they fly. So you place all of them in one group. Fishes normally swim inside water. You understand? There are different kinds of fishes, isn't it? You classify them in one group. So when you're doing such classification, you're classifying living things. And the method used is the one that is introduced by a Swiss scientist known as carbon laying. Now, when you want to classify, you start by classifying living things into two major kingdoms, and those two kingdoms are what? Plants and what? Animals. So I'm going to draw the sketch of this classification method. So we have what we call the what? The first one is the what? Kingdom. Then after the kingdom, we have what we call the phylum. The what? Phylum. Which is for what? Animals. Or you have what we call the what? Division, which is for what? Plants. So from kingdom you get to the phylum or division. We call it phylum when you're addressing animals, or division when it's for plants. Then from kingdom we have what we call class. I mean from phylum we have class. Then from class we have what? We have order. Then from order we have what? We have family. Then from family we have genus. Then from genus we have species. So that is the order of classification of living things. That is the schematic description of the order of classification of living things. First of all, we have what we call the kingdom. After the kingdom, you have other divisions known as phylum for animal or division for plant. Then we have the class, then we have the order, then we have the family, the genus, and the species. Kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. So that is the order of classification of living things. That is the order of classification of living things. That is the order of classification of living things. Is that clear? Now, from the order, which one is the last? Species, isn't it? So we can say that the basic unit of classification of living things is the what? Is the what? Species. The basic unit of classification of living things is the species. And the species has, is that clear? The species is the smallest unit of classification. Species is the what? The smallest unit of classification. Containing members which have the largest features in common. Which have the largest features in what? Common. containing members which has the largest number of features in common. They can interbreed. Animals or plants in the same species can always interbreed. Can always do what? Interbreed. Like when you have a monkey, you know that a monkey is a mammal, isn't it? And human being is also a mammal, isn't it? Monkey and human beings are mammal. But can they interbreed? They cannot. A monkey and a human being cannot interbreed. You understand? Because human being is classified as Homo sapien, isn't it? Homo sapien, that's the species. The species is the sapien. Is that clear? But monkey cannot interbreed with us because we are not the same species. Although we are in the same class. Is that clear? The class of monkey is what we call Mammalia. And that of human being is also what? Mammalia. You understand? Both monkeys and human beings are mammals, but they cannot interbreed because they are not in the same species. But both of them are in the same, they're in the same kingdom. Why are they in the same kingdom? Because both of them are animals, isn't it? They're in the animal kingdom. They're in the same phylum. They're also in the same class, but they are not the same species. You understand? For them to interbreed, they must be in the same what? Species. Is that clear? Is that clear? Is that clear? So species is the basic unit of what? Classification. Basic unit of classification. Basic unit of classification. Let's take an example. We have human being and we have lion. We have human being and we have what? Lion. Now the classification, we have number one classification is the what? Kingdom is the number one classification, isn't it? What kingdom is human being? Animal, isn't it? Animalia. Lion is also what? Animalia. That's the kingdom. Now the second classification we'll talk about the what? The phylum, isn't it? What phylum is human being? Chordata. What phylum is lion? Chordata. As animals that have spinal cord, or animals that have bones, animals that have bones, or that type. Okay. Then we'll talk about the what? Class. What class is human being? Human being is Mammalia. What class is lion? Mammalia. Mammals. You understand? In English we call it mammals. Now we talk about the order. What order is human beings? Primates. What order is lion? Carnivora. Now we talk about family. What family is human beings? Hominidia. Hominidia. What family is lion? Felidae. Felidae. Now we talk about genus. What genus is human being? Homo. What genus is lion? Panthera. Now, lastly, we'll talk about species. What species are human beings? Sapiens. What species are lions? Leo. You understand? So those are the classification for human beings, starting from kingdom down to species, and similarly for lions, starting from kingdom down to species. Are we together? So these are the classification procedure. First is kingdom, second is phylum, third is class, fourth order, family, genus, and what? Species. And this is the category that human being falls in using this. You understand? Now, we said that the person that introduced the procedure for naming or classifying living things is the man called Calvin Lane. Calvin Lane. And the method is introduced is a method called binomial nomenclature. Binomial what? Nomenclature. Binomial nomenclature is the method introduced by Calvin Lane. Binomial what? Nomenclature. What is the meaning of binomial nomenclature? Binomial nomenclature simply means giving living things two names. Giving living things what? Two names. First is the generic name, the genus, followed by the specific name. First is the word generic name, followed by the word specific name. Is that clear? Binomial what? Nomenclature. Some people call it botanical name or the names, you understand, the scientific names. So, like, if you want to give human beings name using the scientific name, you give them two names. First is the generic name or the genus name, followed by the specific name or the species name. So for human being, the name of the scientific name for human being is what? Homo sapiens. Scientific name for human being is what? Homo sapiens. Because of the fact that we are using what? Binomial what? Nomenclature. We are using two names. You are not going to give name human being sapiens or homo. You give it two names. So those two names is the generic name and the word specific name. Genus name and word species name. So human being by this explanation is what? Homo sapiens. So what's the name of lion? The scientific name? Panthera leo. Panthera leo. Panthera leo. That's the name. That's the scientific name for lion. And the scientific name for human being is what? Homo sapiens. And it is gotten by the generic name and the word specific name. Is that clear? So that is how you name in binomial nomenclature. Is that clear? Is that clear? Good. Hello, welcome back. We are going to be learning about the classification of plants. Classification of what? Plants. We say that when you want to classify living organisms, first of all, you classify them into two different kingdoms. Is it not? Kingdom is the number one classification. And we have two kingdoms, the plants and the animal world kingdom. Now when you come to the plant kingdom, you can classify them into divisions, you understand? And the major divisions under plants are the Schizophyta, Thallophyta, Bryophyta, and Spermatophyta. Those are the major divisions. So we are going to take each division one after the other and see the characteristics of such division and the example of organisms that are there. Is that clear? So number one is the what? Schizophyta or Schizophyta. These are prokaryotic cells with no definite nucleus. Is that clear? They are simple organisms. They are very, very simple. Simple organisms. Example of organisms in this group are bacteria, viruses, blue, green algae or non-stop. Is that clear? So the first group or the first division of plants are the Schizophyta, which are actually prokaryotic cells. Prokaryotic cells are those cells that don't have definite nucleus. They are simple organisms, and examples are bacteria, viruses, blue-green algae. You understand? And you know that bacteria and viruses are the things that cause disease in human beings, isn't it? Isn't it? So, in this classification, you know the nature of these organisms that cause this disease. They are prokaryotic cells, and they are simple. Most times they are unicellular, you understand? They are very small, that you may not be able to see them with your eyes. You understand? So what are the characteristics? What are the characteristics? What are the characteristics? Number one characteristic is that they are prokaryotic cells with no definite what? Nucleus. Number two is that they are simple. They are what? Simple. So I can write here, they are unicellular organisms. They are unicellular organisms. What do we mean by unicellular organisms? They contain one cell. They are unicellular organisms. Number two, they reproduce by asexual means, in brackets, binary fission. They reproduce by what means? Asexual means. They reproduce by asexual means, in brackets, binary fission. You understand? They are not like human beings that will need the male part and the female part to come and meet in order to produce young ones. These ones reproduce by division. They just divide. The cell will just divide into two. That's what we call binary fission. Into two. They just divide. That's how they make new ones. Once any cell matures enough, it divides. The division matures enough again, divides again. That's how they reproduce. That's how Schizophyta. That's how bacteria and viruses reproduce. Is that clear? Another characteristic is that they are microscopic They are what? Microscopic and non-green plants. They are microscopic. They are microscopic. What do we mean by microscopic? They are too small that you cannot see them with the eye. They are microscopic and they are non-green plants. They are non-green plants. They are not green. You know, plants are normally green in color, isn't it? But these plants are not green. The bacteria and the viruses or the blue green algae, they are not normally green in color. Is that clear? What other features do they have? Like I said before, they are simple organisms. They are what? Simple organisms, and they belong to Monera. Monera, a group of simple organisms. And like I said before, they have prokaryotic cells. They have prokaryotic what? Cells. And I say that those plants that have prokaryotic cells are the ones that does not have definite what? Definite what? Nucleus. They don't have definite nucleus. Is that clear? So these are the characteristics of Schizophyta division of plants. Now we're going to look at the number 2, known as Thallophyta. Known as what? Thallophyta. Known as Thallophyta. That's what we're going to look at in the next class. Thallophyta. Thallophyta. Yes, good morning, welcome. Today we are going to be learning about Thallophyta. We learned about the classification of living things. And we say that living things are classified into 2 major kingdoms, isn't it? And we have the plants and the animal world kingdom. Then went further to say that the plant kingdom have other classifications under it, where we will talk about the phylum, isn't it? After the phylum, we'll talk about the what? The classes, the order, the family, genus, and the what? Species. The same way we say that the plants, after the plant kingdom, the first, we have the divisions, isn't it? The classes, the order, the family, genus, and species, isn't it? Then under the divisions, we talked about the Schizophyta in the previous class, isn't it? That's one of them. And today we're going to talk about the Thallophyta. The Thallophyta are simple plants with definite shape. Is that clear? They are actually simple plants with definite shape. The Thallophytas are simple plants with they have definite shape. Could be oval or any kind of shape. Members of the Thallophyta are the fungi, the algae, and the lichens. The fungi, the algae, and the what? Lichens. They are the members of these division known as Thallophyta. Is that clear? These lichens are formed when an algae and a fungi exist together. Whenever you have an algae and a fungi existing together, then we're talking about what? The lichens. They actually grow on rocks and tree trunks. They grow on what? Rocks and tree trunks. So we're going to take the characteristics of these 2 types of Thallophyta. The fungi and the what? Algae. Is that clear? In subsequent classes, we will be making sketches of all the different kinds of plants. The fungi will make sketches. You understand? You're supposed to know how to draw them and be able to do what? Label them. And be able to do what? Label them. So number 1 type, A type, we'll talk about the what? Fungi. What are the characteristics of a fungi? What are the characteristics of a fungi? Number 1, they are eukaryotes and multicellular organisms. Number 1 is that they are eukaryotes and multicellular organisms. Is that clear? Fungi are eukaryotes and multicellular organisms. And when we say eukaryotes, what do we mean? We mean that they have definite nucleus. Exactly. They have well-defined nucleus. That's what we mean by eukaryotes. They are multicellular. Simply means that they are not made up of only one cell. They are made up of more than one cell. Exactly. Then what is the number 2 characteristics of a fungi? They have no true roots, stems, and leaves. Fungi, they have no true roots, stems, and what? Leaves. Unlike the gymnosperms, you understand? The normal plants that you see, the green plants, they have stem, they have roots. But this fungi, they don't have roots, true roots. They don't have true stems and true leaves. Is that clear? Now we'll talk what are the other characteristics. We'll talk about they are non-green plants. That's the third characteristic. Fungi are non-green plants. They are non-green what? Plants. And why are they non-green plants? Because they lack chlorophyll. They lack what? Chlorophyll. You understand? Chlorophyll is responsible for that green pigment in plants. You understand? So those plants that don't have chlorophyll, they are not green in color. Is that clear? Is that clear? They are mainly saprophytes while others are parasitic. They are what? They are mainly saprophytes while others are parasitic. You understand? Whenever a plant does not have green color, you know it's the green color that is responsible for photosynthesis, which is a process where the plant under the influence of the sun produces its own food and energy, isn't it? So a plant that does not have green color, can it photosynthesize? No, it cannot. So how can it eat? How can it fetch food? It can do that by being what? Saprophyte. Saprophyte feed on dead, decaying organisms and materials, isn't it? Then parasites feed on other organisms to survive, isn't it? So fungi are mainly saprophytes and few of them are what? Parasitic. Is that clear? Then what other characteristics do fungi have? What other characteristics do fungi have? The vegetative plant body is made up of fine and delicate threads called hyphae. And understand number 5? They are made up of hyphae. You understand? These hyphae are what? Fine and delicate threads. Is that clear? Fine and delicate what? Thread. Understand? You find out that when we draw a fungi, you see that it is actually made up of fine delicate thread known as what? Hyphae. High what? Fair. Hyphae. Very important. Another characteristic is that they are mainly found in moist environment. They are mainly found in where? Moist environment. Fungi are mainly found in moist environment. What do we mean by moist environment? No, moist means place that contains water. Maybe swampy or wet areas, you understand? Those are the places you find fungi. Understand? Or wet, moist food items, bread, all those kind of items. That's where you find them. What other characteristics? They reproduce asexually by means of spores. Understand? That's the final. They reproduce asexually by means of spores. Exactly. That's the way they produce their offsprings. That's their reproduction mechanism. They use asexual reproduction through the use of their what? Spores. Exactly. Now, what are the examples of fungi? We have rhizopus, mucor, mushroom, penicillium, and yeast. What are the examples of fungi? What are the examples of fungi? We talk about what? Rhizopus. What else is an example of a fungi? Mucor. You know what mucor is, man? Mucor, what again? Mushroom. Mushroom and what? Penicillium and what? Yeast. All these are examples of what? Fungi. Yeast is an example of fungi. Penicillium is an example of fungi. Rhizopus is an example of fungi. Mushroom. Some people eat it, isn't it? It's also an example of fungi. Is that clear? So these are the characteristics of fungi. They are eukaryotes and multicellular. They have no true roots, stems and leaf. They are non-green plants. They lack chlorophyll. They are mainly saprophytes, while others are what? Parasitic. They are made up of hypha, which are delicate thread. You understand? They are found in most environments. They reproduce asexually by means of spores. And examples of fungi are rhizopus, mucor, mushroom, penicillium, and yeast. Penicillium, yeast, rhizopus, mucor, and mushroom are examples of fungi. Yes, welcome. Previously we learned about the division Thallophyta, isn't it? And we talked about the fungi as one of the example of Thallophyta. I would say that these fungi are eukaryotes. And we give examples of fungi as mushroom, mucor, penicillium, rhizopus, isn't it? And today we are going to be looking at algae. What are the characteristics of algae? What are their characteristics? Number one, algae are simple microscopic green plants. They are what? Simple microscopic green plants. We say that fungi are non-green plants, isn't it? And because fungi are non-green, they cannot manufacture their own food using photosynthesis. But algae are simple microscopic green what? Plants. They are green plants. They have cellular cell wall. Is that clear? Some of them are unicellulars. Some algae are unicellulars. Example is Climadomonas. Climadomonas is an example of an algae, and it is what? Unicellular. While others are multicellular. There are other algae that are what? Multicellular. Example is what? Spirogyra. Example of a multicellular algae is Spirogyra. They have no true roots, stems and leaves. Just like fungi, algae don't have true roots, stems and what? Leaves. They are mainly aquatic plants. they are mainly what? Aquatic plants. That means they stay in water or in riverine areas, isn't it? Algae are mainly autotrophic plants. Autotrophic plants. What is the meaning of autotrophic plants? Whenever a plant can synthesize its own food, it is said to be what? Autotrophic. So algae can synthesize their own food. Why? Because they are green plants. You understand? They have chlorophyll, so they can use photosynthesis to synthesize their own food. Is that clear? They are filamentous. They are what? Filamentous. That means they are made up of filaments. Isn't it? They have no specialized reproductive organs. Algae don't have any specialized reproductive organs, and that's the reason why they reproduce through both sexual and asexual means. They reproduce through both what? Sexual and asexual means. Algae reproduce through both sexual and asexual means. Now, who can give me examples of algae? What are the animals that are algae? Examples. Number one is Chlamydomonas. Give me another example of an algae. Volvox is another example. Give me another example of an algae. Chlamydomonas, Volvox. Diatoms. Well, diatoms are also examples of algae. Another example is what? Euglena and what? Spirogyra. Euglena and Spirogyra are also examples of what? Algae. Euglena and what? Spirogyra, as well as what? Chlamydomonas. Is that clear? All these are examples of what? Algae, which is under what division of plants? Under what division? Thallophyta. Under what division? Under what division? Thallophyta. And I told us that in subsequent classes we are going to be making sketches of all these animals, of all these what? Animals, of all, I mean all these plants, sorry, they are not animals. Of all these what? Plants. Very, very important. Is that clear? Yes, welcome. Today we are going to be learning about Bryophyta or the Bryophytes. Today we are going to be learning about the Bryophytes or the Bryophyta division of plants. Bryophyta division of what? Plants. What are the characteristics of these animals, these plants, Bryophyta? How do you know them when you see them? Number one is that they are complex multicellular green plants. They are green. Is that clear? They are multicellular. They are made up of more than one cell. Unlike the schizophytes. Is that clear? They are complex multicellular green plants. Their cells are differentiated into tissue. You understand? They are made up of tissue. Their cells are differentiated into tissues. They lack true roots, stems, and leaves. Just like the previous groups that we looked at. Most of them lacked through roots, stems, and leaves. You understand? But then they have structures that resemble these roots, stems, and what? Leaves. They are non-vascular plants. They don't have vessels. You understand? They are non-vascular plants. They are non-vascular plants. They are usually found growing in moist places. You understand? Places where there is water, moist, wet places. That's where you find Bryophyta. Some Bryophytas or Bryophytes are terrestrial, while some are what? Aquatic. What's the meaning of that statement? Some of them stay on top of the land, whereas some stay inside the water. Some are terrestrial, while some are what? Aquatic. They exhibit asexual reproduction using their what? Spores. They exhibit what? Asexual reproduction using their what? Spores. So these are the characteristics of what? Bryophyta, a division of the animal or plant what kingdom. Is that clear? Which plants fall under this group? Can you give me an example of the plants that fall under this group? Which plants fall under this group? Here you talk about the what? The Moses and liverworts. The what? Moses and liverworts. So these are the animals that fall under Bryophyta, and they have these characteristics. You understand? Every Moses and liverwort that you see have such characteristics as being complex and multicellular green plants. You understand? Moses and liverworts are always multicellular green plants. Their cells are differentiated into what? Tissues. They lack true roots, stems, and leaves, but they have structures that actually resemble them. They are non-vascular plants. They are usually found growing in most places. Some bryophytes are terrestrial, while some are what? Aquatic. They exhibit asexual reproduction by using their what? Spores. So good examples of Bryophyta are what? Moses and liverwort. Moses and what? Liverworts. Yes, welcome. Today we're going to be learning about the Pteridophytes, the Pteridophytes, or the Pteridophyta division. The Pteridophyta what? Division. The Pteridophyta division. The Pteridophyta division. What are the characteristics of this division of the plant kingdom? They are multicellular and vascular green plants. You understand? They are vascular. You remember all the previous ones we've been doing, they are non-vascular. You understand? The lesser ones. But here we have that they are multicellular and what? Vascular green plants. They are green. They are non-flowering plants. They don't have flowers. When we talk about the Superlife, you see that they have flowers. But these ones, they don't have what? Flower. But when we talk about the Superlife, you see that they have flowers. But the Pteridophyta, they don't have what? Flowers. They have true roots, stems, and leaves. See the previous one, the Bryophytes and the Schizophytes, they don't have true leaves, stem and leaves. But the Pteridophyta, they have what? True roots, stems, and leaves. The Pteridophytas have true leaves, stems, and what? Roots. They are mainly terrestrial plants, while few are what? Aquatic. They are mainly terrestrial. Most of them stay on the land, whereas few are what? Aquatic. They are not seed-producing plants. They don't produce seeds. They don't produce what? Seeds. They are not seed-producing plants. They reproduce sexually by what? Spores. They reproduce what? Sexually by what? Spores. What are the examples of plants that fall under this group? What are the examples? We have the what? The Phelimas and water ferns and the what? Dropteris. We have what? The example of plants under here are the what? Phelimas. Which other one? The water ferns, isn't it? And the what? The examples of the Pteridophytes are Phelimas, water fern, and finally the Dropteris. The Dropteris. The what? Dropteris. The what? Dropteris. These are the plants that fall under the Pteridophyte or the Pteridophyta group, the Phelimas, water ferns, and the what? Dropteris. Is that clear? They have such characteristics as that they are multicellular and vascular green plants. They are non-flowering plants. They don't produce flowers. They have true roots, stems, and what? Leaves. They are mainly terrestrial plants, while few are what? Aquatic. They are not seed-producing what? Plants, and they reproduce sexually by using their what? Spores. They produce what? Sexually by using their what? Spores. Is that clear? Yes, welcome. Today we are going to be learning nutrition. Today we are going to be learning what? Nutrition. Who can tell me what nutrition is? The process of taking in food by the cells and the tissues of the body. Exactly. The process or the supply of food and nutrients to the cells and the tissues of living organism. It's known as what? Nutrition. It's known as what? Nutrition. And it's one of the major or basic characteristics of what? Living things. Exactly. Every living thing must feed. Because without food, you cannot do work. You cannot repair one part. Do you know that if a knife cuts you, after some time it heals, isn't it? If you are not eating, if you are not feeding well, some of those things will not happen. Is that clear? Because nutrition is the process or is the supply of food to the cells of organisms in order that they can do what? Grow. Without food, you cannot grow. You'll be malnourished. During the war, you see those Biafran kids that don't eat food. They are malnourished, isn't it? Because they need food for them to grow. If you want to grow and look good, you have to eat food, because it's the food that helps the cells to grow. Is that clear? So there is need for supply of food so that they can do what? Grow, and as well repair and replace what? Worn out tissue. Repair and replace what? Worn out tissue. When you have a cut, when you have injuries, you understand? The food that you eat that has nutrients helps those places to do what? Heal. Helps those places to do what? Heal. It helps them to do what? Heal. Also, it helps what? Respiration. When you don't have energy, your lungs will not be moving for you to breathe in air. Is that clear? Is that clear? So living things feed or take in nutrients for what? Survival. They feed and take in nutrients for survival. Living things feed and take in nutrients for what? Survival. And the mode of nutrition does what? Vary from one organism to another. If you want to eat, how do you eat? You cook food, isn't it? You use spoon, you dish it out and you start eating. That's how you eat food. And you're a living thing, isn't it? Now if a dog wants to eat food, how does it eat? It goes to the bone, mixes it and does what? It eats it, isn't it? Now if plants want to eat, have you ever seen plants eating meat or eating something? But you know that plant is a living thing, and by virtue of being a living thing, it does what? It feeds. There is always nutrition because it is a living thing. So what is the mode of nutrition of plants? And that's why we say the mode of nutrition varies from one organism to what? To the other. Plants use what we call photosynthesis, isn't it? That's what they use in eating. Photosynthesis. Due to the energy of the sun. You understand? On the chlorophyll that is in the green plant. Every green plant, that's how they feed. You understand? Through reactions. And we are going to explain photosynthesis very soon. Is that clear? So now we look at the modes of nutrition. We look at what? Modes of nutrition. And I say mode of nutrition, what does it mean? The way through which that particular organism feeds, is it not? So what are the modes of nutrition that we have? We have what we call autotrophic nutrition. That's the number one mode. We have what we call what? Autotrophic mode. Autotrophic nutrition. Autotrophic nutrition. Autotrophic. It's automatic. It involves those organisms that can manufacture their own food from simple inorganic material. This is the mode that involves organisms manufacturing their own what? Food. If you can manufacture your own food, you are an organism and you can manufacture your own food from simple inorganic materials. From what? Simple inorganic materials. You understand? Then you are practicing a mode known as what? Autotrophic what? Nutrition. Under this autotrophic, we have types. We have different types. We have what we call chemosynthesis. The first type is what we call what? Chemosynthesis. Here, organisms obtain energy by oxidation of chemical substances. Here, organisms obtain energy by oxidation of chemical substances. Oxidation of chemical substances. Now I'm going to give you an example of organisms that use such method, use chemosynthesis. We have what we call the sulfur bacteria. Examples can be seen in number 1, sulfur bacteria. They use this form. They oxidize sulfur to tetraoxosulfate 6 acids. The example is Thiobacillus, Thiooxidans. Sulfur bacteria like Thiobacillus and Thiooxidans. Those are the examples. Another example is nitrogen bacteria. They also use chemosynthesis. Nitrogen bacteria. They use chemosynthesis as well. Nitrosomonas oxidizes ammonia or its compound to dinitrate 3, diosonitrate 3. So example is Nitrosomonas and Nitrobacter. Here we have Nitrosomonas and what? Nitrobacter. The examples of organisms that use chemosynthesis. Then finally we have ion bacteria that oxidizes ion from ion 4 to ion 3. Then finally we have what we call ion bacteria. So all these organisms, the sulfur bacteria, nitrogen bacteria, ion bacteria, they use what we call chemosynthesis. They use what we call what? Chemosynthesis. And this chemosynthesis is a form of what? Autotrophic nutrition. And I told us that autotrophic nutrition are used by those organisms that manufacture their own food from simple what? Inorganic materials. Simple inorganic material. And you know what inorganic materials are? Things like sulfur, oxygen. You understand? That's what they use in producing their own food. So this group of people, chemosynthesis, they are neither plants. They don't use photosynthesis. You understand? And they don't eat food like human beings. But they use what we call inorganic what? Simple inorganic material to produce their own food. You understand? So one major mode of autotrophic nutrition is what? Chemosynthesis. It's what? Chemosynthesis. So Jamb is going to ask you which of these organisms use chemosynthesis or autotrophic mode of nutrition. They will give you an example. Nitrosomonas, Nitrobacter, Thiobacillus, dog. Which of the following does not use autotrophic mode of nutrition? What will be the answer? Dog. Yes, welcome. Today we are going to continue modes of nutrition. We say that the first mode of nutrition is autotrophic, is it not? And autotrophic simply means when the organism can produce its own food. Is that clear? By the synthesis of inorganic materials around it. Is it not? Those are known as autotrophs. Those organisms are known as what? Autotroph. And that mode of nutrition is known as what? Autotrophic what? Nutrition. Is that clear? I would say we have two categories of organisms under this. We have those that do chemosynthesis. Is that clear? We have those that do chemosynthesis. Then we have those that are what? Holophytic nutrition. Is that clear? Those organisms that undergo chemosynthesis are the bacteria. Is it not? The nitrogen bacteria, the sulfur bacteria, and the what? Iron bacteria. The nitrosomonas and nitrobacters. They undergo what we call chemosynthesis. Is that clear? To synthesize their own food. Then the other form of autotrophs are those that undergo what we call holophytic what? Nutrition. And we say that these ones are the what? Green plants. Are the what? Green plants. All autotrophs manufacture their food by themselves. You understand? But the procedure they use could be by chemosynthesis or by what? Holophytic what? Nutrition. So those people those organisms that use holophytic nutrition are the what? Green plants. And they use a process known as what? Photosynthesis. So holophytic nutrition, this is carried out by all green plants through the process of what? Photosynthesis. Is that clear? So two of them manufacture their own food. Now we have another mode of nutrition where the organisms do not manufacture their own food. Is that clear? They depend on already made food by other plants or animals. Is that clear? That mode of nutrition is known as what? Heterotrophic what? Nutrition. It's known as what? Heterotrophic nutrition. Heterotrophic nutrition. In heterotrophic nutrition, all animals, fungi, protozoa, and some bacteria depend directly or what? Indirectly on autotrophs. They depend on what? Autotrophs. What organisms are known as autotrophs? The ones that manufacture their food by themselves. Is that clear? So the heterotrophs depend on the what? Autotrophs. For what? Food. They depend on already what? Made food. And Jamb will ask you, which of the following categories of organisms depend on already made food? You should know that the answer is what? Heterotroph. And they say, which of the following organisms manufacture their food by themselves? Autotrophs. And the two examples of autotrophs are what and what? Those that undergo what and what? Chemosynthesis and what? Holophytic nutrition. Is that clear? So I'm going to give us examples of the ones that undergo heterotrophic what? Nutrition. That means those ones that depend on other organisms to feed. Is that clear? So what are the examples of heterotrophs that we have? We have what we call examples of what? Heterotrophic or heterotrophs. Number one is what we call saprophytes. Number one is what we call what? Saprophytes. They are a very good example. And how do saprophytes, how do they feed? Saprophytes. How do they feed? Saprophytes feed on dead remains of plants and animals. They do what? They feed on dead remains of what? Plants and animals. So saprophytes are a good example of heterotrophs, organisms that undergo heterotrophic mode of nutrition. And what are they? They are organisms that feed on dead remains of plants and animals. You understand? They feed on dead and decaying organisms. Example is rhizopus smoker. Example of saprophytes are what? Rhizopus. That's a very good example. Rhizopus. Another one is mucor. Mucor. Very, very important. Another one is fungi, then bacteria. Another one is what? Fungi, and also some what? Bacteria. They are examples of what? Saprophytes. So saprophytes feed on what? They feed on dead, decaying organisms. And that will ask you, which of the following organisms feed on dead, decaying organisms? Saprophytes, is it not? Then another form, this is one form of heterotroph. Another form is what we call the ones that are holozoic mode. This is exhibited by animals. They take in complex organic food. This is exhibited by who? By who? Animals. So what mode do we use in eating? Me and you. What mode? What mode? Holozoic, isn't it? They take in complex food substances. They take in complex food substances. Is that clear? And holozoic mode of nutrition can be divided into three. Holozoic mode of the feeding can be divided into what? Three. We have three types. Number one is what we call herbivores. Number one is what? Herbivores. Number two is what we call carnivores or carnivorous animals. And number three is what we call omnivores. Number three is what we call what? Omnivores or omnivorous animals. Who can tell me the difference between these? These ones, they feed on what? They feed on what? Plants, green plants. Who can give me an example? Like sheep, goat, have you seen goats eating meat? They feed on green plants. You understand? So these ones feed on what? Green what? They feed on green plants. The herbivores feed on green plants. What of carnivores? What do carnivores feed on? They feed on flesh. They feed on what? Flesh. Flesh means meat, but carnivores feed on flesh. Who can give me an example? Dog, is it not? Cat, is it not? They are examples of carnivores. The omnivores are those that feed on what? They feed on flesh and what? Green what? Green plants. Who can give me an example? Man, me and you can feed on both plants and animals. So these three are different classes of what? Holozoic what? Organisms. Organisms that undergo holozoic mode of what? Nutrition. Now, apart from the saprophytes and the holozoic organisms, we have other organisms. Example is the predators, the symbionts and the parasites. Predators, symbionts and what? Parasites. Yes, we are going to be learning about plant nutrition. We are going to be learning what? Plant nutrition. Plant nutrition. How do plants feed? How do they get their food? We said that plants are autotrophs, isn't it? They manufacture their food through photosynthesis, but they don't feed on other organisms like animals do. Me and you, if we want to eat, we can feed on flesh. can feed on cow meat or can feed on plants, isn't it? Fruits and other things. But plants, how do they get their own food? How do plants feed? Plants use a process known as what? Photosynthesis. Plants use a process known as photosynthesis. How does this work? The non-green plants, you know there are some plants that are not green. For a plant to do photosynthesis, it must be green in color. So what of those plants that are non-green? How do they feed? The non-green plants lack chlorophyll. They lack chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is the green pigment on plants that make them to be having green color, is it not? So non-green plants lack chlorophyll and as such either feed parasitically or what? Saprophytically. Is that clear? So any plant that is not green is either feeding using any of the two modes of nutrition, whether it's parasitically or what? Saprophytically. And we know what these two mean. Is it not? Saprophytically or saprophytes are those organisms that feed on dead organisms, is it not? Whereas parasites enjoy other people and cause harm to them and feed. You understand? So that is how non-green plants feed. But how do green plants feed? Because today we are learning about plant nutrition. So plant nutrition covers how both green and non-green plants feed. So we've said that the plants that are non-green, they feed through what? Parasitical. They feed parasitically or what? Saprophytically. So how do the green ones feed? The green plants synthesize carbohydrates in the presence of what? Carbon 4 oxide, water and what? Chlorophyll. So the function of this chlorophyll is to trap light, sun rays, you understand? And this process gives off what? Oxygen as a byproduct. This process is known as what? Photosynthesis. Is that clear? So they will ask you, what is photosynthesis? Photosynthesis is a process where green plants manufacture their own food by doing what? By synthesizing carbohydrates in the presence of what? Carbon 4 oxide, water and what? Chlorophyll, and give off what? Oxygen. Is that clear? That is photosynthesis. So this is the reaction, the chemical equation for photosynthesis. Carbon 4 oxide reacts with what? Water in the presence of what? Light and what? Chlorophyll to give what? Glucose. This glucose is the carbohydrate that is synthesized. Is that clear? Giving off the byproduct of what? Oxygen. Giving off the byproduct of what? Oxygen. So this is a photosynthesis reaction. Is that clear? So if Jamb asks you, which of the following is needed for photosynthesis to occur? Or what are the materials needed for photosynthesis to occur? Give me an example of a material that is needed for photosynthesis to occur. Chlorophyll. Give me one. Carbon dioxide. Carbon 4 oxide. Another example, another material needed. Water. You understand? There has to be carbon 4 oxide. There has to be water. There has to be chlorophyll. You understand? If the plant is not green, this reaction will not happen. And there has to be what? There has to be what? Light. Can you see those things that are necessary for photosynthesis to occur? Give me 5 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. No. Glucose is not necessary for it to occur. Glucose is the product, is what is produced after photosynthesis must have done what? Occurred. Is that clear? So this photosynthesis is happening in order to get what? Glucose. Because glucose is that nutrient that they need. Is that clear? So we say that photosynthesis is the process by which plants synthesize what? Carbohydrate. They need this carbohydrate. And this green carbohydrate is also known as what? Glucose. Is that clear? So how do they manufacture this carbohydrate? By using the process known as what? Photosynthesis. And for this photosynthesis to happen, you need what? Carbon 4 oxide, water, light, and chlorophyll. Is that clear? So what is the byproduct of photosynthesis? Jamb will ask you. What is the product that is not needed? It's a product, but it's not the major project. It's a byproduct. What is it? Glucose is the main product. So the byproduct of photosynthesis is what? Oxygen. Is that clear? Is that clear? Can I clean up? Now, Photosynthesis happens in two stages. Photosynthesis happens in what? It happens in what? Two stages. Number one is what we call the light phase. Number one is what we call the what? Light phase. Or you can say photosynthesis happens in two phases. In two what? Phases. Number one is the light phase, and number two is the what? Dark phase. Is that clear? So we have the dark phase and the light phase. Now let's look at the light phase. Light phase reaction. What happens in the light phase in photosynthesis? What happens? Number one thing that happens, the chlorophyll traps the light energy. Number one is what? The chlorophyll traps the light energy. That's the first thing that happens during photosynthesis. The other chlorophyll, the green pigment, must trap the what? Light energy. Number two, the water further splits. The energy further splits the water into hydrogen and hydroxyl ion. B, the energy further splits water into hydrogen ion and what? Hydrogen and what? Hydroxyl ion. That's the second thing that happens in the light phase. The chlorophyll traps the light rays. That's the first thing that happens. Then this light ray with the energy splits the water molecule into hydrogen ion and hydroxyl ion, which is called photolysis. So that will ask you, the splitting of water molecule into hydrogen and hydroxyl ion is known as what? Photolysis. So this is the equation. 4H2O is split into 4 hydrogen ion and what? 4 hydroxyl ion plus ATP. Now the hydroxyl ion is reconverted to water and oxygen. That's the next thing that happens. The hydroxyl ion is reconverted to water and oxygen. In that case, 4OH turns back to 2H2O plus O2. Exactly. That's the third thing that happened in the light phase. Then the fourth thing that happens is that during this process, oxygen is liberated as a byproduct. At the same time, a compound coenzyme known as NADP is reduced by hydrogen ion to NADH and ATP is formed. ATP is the chemical means for storing energy. This ATP is the chemical means for storing energy. So what actually happened here is that the byproduct, what is produced? Oxygen. This oxygen byproduct is produced here. When these two reactions occurs, oxygen is produced as a byproduct. Then ATP, which stores energy, is also produced. Is that clear? So we cannot say that the overall equation is shown. This is the byproduct. So So we can now show that the overall reaction equation here. You can show it to be what? 6H2O plus CO2 plus 6CO2. Is that clear? To give what? Glucose 6H12O6 plus what? Oxygen. You already know this equation now, huh? This is the equation of photosynthesis. But you must need the energy of the light, huh? Energy of the light and what? What else do you need? Chlorophyll. So now we'll talk about the dark phase reaction. Dark phase reaction. This is the light phase reaction. What happened in the dark phase reaction? The reaction takes place in the presence of enzymes and requires no light. The hydrogen atoms are added to carbon 4 oxide to form simple sugar. Other substances such as starch, fats and oil and protein are then synthesized from this dark phase. So light phase reaction needs light, and that's why chlorophyll traps the light for all this to happen. But in dark phase reaction, you don't need what? Light. So this one, dark phase reaction, takes place in the presence of enzyme. Presence of what? Enzymes, and requires no light. Takes place in the presence of enzymes and does what? Requires no light. So the dark phase reaction does not require any light. The hydrogen atoms are added to carbon. So what happens here actually is that hydrogen atoms are added to this carbon 2, this carbon 4 oxide, in the presence of energy and enzyme to form what? Simple sugar, CH2O, and what? Water. This is known as simple sugar. This one is known as what? Simple sugar. So we have hydrogen atom reacting with carbon 4 oxide to form simple sugar. From this simple sugar, other things like starch can be synthesized. Is that clear? You can get starch, you can get fats and oil, and you can get also what? Proteins. So this is how plant gets most of this nutrient. Understand? From the synthesis that happened in the dark phase reaction. Is that clear? So this one happens in the presence of what? Enzyme, and what? Energy. So those are the two aspects of photosynthesis. Those are the two what? Phases of photosynthesis. Number one is the light phase, which involves the chlorophyll trapping the light and the splitting of the water molecule into hydrogen and hydroxyl what? Ions. And the hydroxyl ion is later reconverted to what? Oxygen. In the whole process, we have ATP forming. You understand? Giving you the overall reaction where you have oxygen reacting with carbon 4 oxide to form what? Glucose and what? Byproduct of oxygen. I mean, this is water with carbon 4 oxide in the presence of energy and chlorophyll to form glucose and what? Byproduct of oxygen. Is that clear? Whereas in dark phase, what we have is the reaction between carbon 4 oxide and what? Hydrogen atoms. Is that clear? To form simple sugar. This simple sugar can then be synthesized to form to produce what? Starch, fats and oil and what? Protein. Is that clear? Did you get it? So Jamb is going to ask you what are the phases we have in photosynthesis. We have the light phase and what? Dark phase. The light phase needs what? Light to happen. Is that clear? Whereas the dark phase does not need what? Light. It's pure synthesis reaction that takes place. Yes, today we are going to be looking at animal nutrition. Animal nutrition. We say that nutrition is the way living things get food in order for them to supply energy, grow and repair worn out body parts. Is that not so? That's the essence of nutrition. To eat food in order to do what? Get energy, grow, and do what? Repair worn out parts. Is that not clear? That is the essence of feeding. That is the essence of nutrition. I will say that in the modes of nutrition, living things could be autotrophs or heterotrophs. Is that not so? Autotrophs are those ones that manufacture their food by themselves, whereas heterotrophs feed from the autotrophs. I will say that plants are heterotrophs, is it not? And the particular mode that animals, we say that plants are autotrophs, whereas animals are what? Heterotrophs. And the particular mode of nutrition utilized by animal is holozoic. Is that not so? I would say under holozoic that holozoic could be carnivores, omnivores, or what? Herbivores. Now, animals depend either directly or indirectly on plants for food, as they cannot manufacture their own food. Is that a fact? Yes, it's only plants that can manufacture their food. It's not all plants, so only green plants. Only green plants that can manufacture their food on their own. Is that not true? Through photosynthesis. Good. So, but there are also other autotrophs that don't use photosynthesis, that use things like chemosynthesis. But heterotrophs, animals are heterotrophs. They cannot manufacture their own food. They depend directly or indirectly on what? Plants. They are referred to as heterotrophs and exhibit holozoic mode of what? Nutrition. Classes or sources of food substances. Classes and sources of food substances. Who can tell me the classes of food we have? How many classes of food do we have? 6 classes. What are they? Carbohydrates, proteins, vitamins, lipids. Lipids is another word for fats and oil. Then water and mineral salts. Those are the 6 classes of food, aren't they? So whenever you consume food, you're either consuming any of them or all of them or some of them, isn't it? Can you give me an example of food items that give carbohydrates? Carbohydrates. We say that carbohydrates are energy-giving food. Can you give me an example of food that give carbohydrates? Yam, cassava, and what? Potato. Those are good examples of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are energy-giving food. Wherever you want to get energy very fast, you take what? Carbohydrates. You take what? Carbohydrates. Carbohydrates is made up of carbon, hydrogen, and what? Oxygen. Carbon, hydrogen, and what? Oxygen. Carbohydrate is made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. That is what carbohydrate is made up of. And it contains hydrogen to the hydrogen to oxygen ratio is 2:1. The hydrogen to oxygen ratio is what? 2:1. Just like you have in H2O. You understand? The hydrogen to oxygen ratio is 2:1. Very, very important. Just like in water. And the general formula for carbohydrate is CxH2OY. CxH2OY. This is the what? This is the what? General formula for carbohydrates, CXH2OY. Is that clear? Is that clear? Now, we have types of carbohydrates. We have what? Types of carbohydrates. Who can tell me the types of carbohydrates we have? We have the what? We have number one, the monosaccharides. That's number one. Number two is the what? Number two is the disaccharides. The monosaccharides. And number three is the what? Number three is the polysaccharides. So these are the types of carbohydrates we have. Now, we say that monosaccharides are referred to as the reducing or simple sugar. These are referred to as the what? Reducing or simple what? Sugar. Is that clear? Example is fructose and glucose. Example is what? Fructose and what? Glucose. So that your glucose that you eat is known as a what? Monosaccharide. The formula is 66819O. Formula here is what? 66H819O. Or what's times 219? I'll check out this formula. So the saccharides are complex sugars or non-reducing sugars. The saccharides are what? Complex what? Or non-reducing sugar. Is that clear? The other one is simple and reducing, whereas this one is what? Complex and non-reducing. Example is maltose and sucrose. Example of this one is what? Maltose and what? Sucrose. Is that clear? Now, polysaccharides are made up of many units of glucose linked together. Is that clear? This one made up of many units of glucose. Many units of glucose what? Don't what? Linked together gives us polysaccharide. Is that clear? Example is starch and cellulose. Examples are what? Starch and what? Cellulose. So whenever you hear starch, this food is giving me starch. Know that they are talking about carbohydrates. Is that not clear? Uses of carbohydrates. What are the uses of carbohydrates? What can we use carbohydrates for? Uses of carbohydrates. You can tell me what we can use carbohydrates for?
Energy.
It provides energy. Number one is that carbohydrate does what? Provides energy. Number two, what else does it do? It is used to build certain body parts, e.g. exoskeleton in arthropods. it is used to do what? Build certain body parts, e.g. the exoskeleton of arthropods is built using carbohydrates. Number 3, components of mucus, which is a lubricant in our body. Carbohydrate serves as what? Components of what? Mucus, which does what? Serves as lubricant in our what? Body. So that is another good function of carbohydrates. Now we look at another class of food known as protein. Known as what? Protein. Protein. Who can tell me what protein is? Who can tell me what protein does to the body? Protein is that class of food that is used for the growth of the body, tissues, and repair of worn-out parts. I hope you know. So what are the sources of protein? The egg white, lean meat, fish. We can get protein from the what? Egg white, lean meat, and what? Fish. When you eat this food, you're eating protein. Is that clear? In addition to carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, proteins contain nitrogen, phosphorus, and at times sulfur. Is that clear? Protein contains, just like carbohydrate, carbon, hydrogen, and what? Oxygen. But also contains nitrogen, phosphorus, and what? Sulfur. So those are the things protein contain. They can also supply energy in the absence of carbohydrates and fats. Is that clear? Protein can as well supply energy in the absence of what? Carbohydrates and fats, which are the main suppliers of energy. The main suppliers of energy to the body are carbohydrates and what? Fats. But if you don't have any of this, protein can also supply energy, because protein is made up of carbon, hydrogen, and what? Oxygen. Is that clear? So this is done by the liver. So the liver can actually use protein to supply energy for us. So what are the uses of protein? What are the uses? Number 1 is that protein is used for the growth of young ones. Is that clear? Children, you need to be giving them plenty of protein so that they can grow. So protein is used in the what? Growth of young ones. Number 2 is that it is used for the repair of worn-out parts. It is used for the what? Repair of worn-out parts. Any part of your body that gets injured is bruised. You understand? Protein can help it to what? Repair. Is that clear? Number 3, it helps reproduction. It helps what? Reproduction. If you want to be producing children, you have to be eating protein because it helps. Number 4, it is used for production of hormones. It is used for what? The production of hormones. Protein is used in the production of hormone. You know, hormone performs several functions in our body. And finally, it is used for tissue and cell formation. Bodybuilding. That's what protein does. That's one of the basic functions, to build the body, the tissues, and the cells in the body. Is that clear? Is that clear? Now we look at fats and oil. We look at what? Fats and oil. What are fats and oil? Fats and oil are also called lipids. They are also called what? Lipids. They contain carbon, hydrogen, and what? Oxygen. Just like carbohydrates. You see? That's why it is majorly fats and oil and carbohydrate that gives us what? Energy. Because they are made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. But of low oxygen ratio, they have lower oxygen. They contain more calories of energy than carbohydrates, which are not as readily available. The energy of carbohydrate is readily available. You understand? Unlike that of fats and oil. They help in insulation of the body. Can you give me an example of food that supply fats and oil? Granite and what? Palm oil. And also what? Butter. That butter you use in your bread, it supplies fats and oil. Granite, you chew granite, supplies fats and oil. Palm oil does the same too. What are the uses of palm oil or fats and oil? Number one, it provides fat soluble vitamins. Number two, it supplies essential fatty acids to animals. Is that clear? It supplies essential fatty acids to animals. Number three, it helps in the maintenance of body temperature. Fat and oil helps in the maintenance of what? Body temperature. Now we look at mineral salts. Mineral salts. That's another what? Class of food, isn't it? What are mineral salts? How can we get mineral salts? Mineral salts help in maintaining the body metabolism, regulating the body what? Metabolism. Examples of things that supply mineral salts are like, we have mineral salts like calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, sulfur, sodium, you understand? Potassium, chlorine, all these are mineral salts. Foods rich in mineral salts are what? Can you give me an example of foods that supply mineral salts? Onions, very good. What other food? Green vegetables, liver, egg. You understand? You know they keep the body healthy. Mineral salt keep the body. That's why when you go, you buy vegetables, buy stuffs like that. Green one, the green vegetables supply mineral salt. They help in healthy growth and bone formation and clothing of the blood. That's what mineral salt does for us. You know what is called blood clothing? When you have a cut and your blood starts coming out or dripping out, instead of it to continue coming out, if it continue coming out, all your blood will finish, isn't it? So the thing that makes it to stop coming out, to clot, is mineral salt. Is that clear? It also helps in bone formation. If you want your bone to be strong, you have to eat a lot of calcium, is it not? Calcium helps in. So what are the uses of mineral salts? They regulate the metabolism of the what? Body. They do what? Regulate the metabolism of the body. Bone formation and clothing. Now, vitamins. Vitamins. What are vitamins? What food items supply vitamins to the body? Can you tell me the food item that supply vitamins to the body? Vegetables, yes. Milk, egg, fruits. All these supply vitamin. Eggs, fruits, vegetables. Examples of the vitamins that we have is vitamin what? A, vitamin what? B, vitamin what? C, vitamin what? E, and vitamin what? K. Those are the vitamins. They are required in small quantities and are known to maintain a healthy living. Vitamin D can be synthesized by mild sunlight. You know that kind of sunlight that comes early morning? It gives vitamin what? D. In addition, vitamins are organic compounds required in small amounts. They are needed for normal growth and development. They are catalysts. Vitamins function as what? Catalysts. Very, very important. So that all those reactions that happen in the body can be going on well. They advance chemical reaction in the body. You understand? They function as catalysts. The function of catalysts in the body is to advance, to make chemical reaction to move faster. Is that clear? Now, vitamins A, D, E, and K are said to be the fat soluble, whereas vitamin B and C are what? Water soluble. B and C, water soluble. Whereas A and the rest of them are what? Fat soluble. It's good, you know. Jamb might ask you which one of these are water soluble. Then the last class of food is what? Water. What is water? Water is a universal solvent. Water is a what? Universal solvent. It is that liquid that you can dissolve most things in. Is that not? That's the meaning of solvent. If you have sugar, if you put sugar in water, it will do what? Dissolve. If you put salt in water, it will do what? Dissolve. Water is a universal solvent. It is composed of hydrogen and what? Oxygen. It is the medium for chemical reactions in every living organism. If you don't have water in your body, how will reactions that give you energy, how will they happen? It will be difficult. You understand? That's why we try not to get dehydrated. We take water all the time because water is very important. It helps in the transportation as well as temperature control. It can be got in nature from streams, river, rain, ocean, sea. Is that not where you get water? Stream, river, ocean. Water helps in what? Transportation. If you eat something, for things to be moving, for your blood to be flowing, it has to have some element of water that dissolves, is it not? So you need water for that. What are the uses of water? Number one, water helps in the digestion of food, isn't it? Number two, it is the main component of plants and animals. Number three, it is a solvent for vitamin B and what? C. That's why we say that B and C are water soluble, is it not? So water is the solvent for vitamin B and C. It aids excretion of metabolic waste. If you want to pass out your waste and you don't have water, your shit will be very strong. It will be difficult for you to pass out. It maintains osmotic concentration of the body tissue. It helps in the transportation of what? Hormones. Are we together? So we look at what? Other organisms. We look at what? Other organisms' mode of how do they survive, how do they feed. Now there are organisms known as predators. Known as what? Predators. Who are predators? Predators are organisms that feed on smaller organisms. You understand? Any bigger organism that feeds on smaller organisms, like hawk. You know hawk. When they come around, they pick your what? They pick your birds. You understand? Your chicken, your fowls. They come down and pick it. They are predators. And those fowls and chickens they are picking are known as what? They are prey. You understand? Organisms that feed on smaller organisms. Those smaller organisms are known as what? Prey. Example is hawk feeding on what? Small birds. Or snake feeding on what? Rats. Is that clear? Those are predators. There are another type of animals are what we call symbionts. Symbionts. You understand? Symbionts are organisms that engage in a form of symbionts are organisms that engage in a form of relationship known as symbiosis. Known as what? Symbiosis. And symbiotic relationship is any form of relationship that benefits the both organisms that are involved in the relationship. Is that clear? If me and you, if we are having a relationship and that relationship is benefiting me and it's also benefiting you, me and you, we call it what? Symbiosis, symbiotic relationship. Good example of organisms that have it is the what? Legume, noodle, and what? Nitrifying bacteria. The nitrifying bacteria helps the legumes in the process of nitrification. Is that clear? But they get their food from the legume itself. Is that clear? So both of them are benefiting from itself. Another example is the lichens that involves the fungus and the algae. But if organisms are not having symbiotic relationship, they will be having what we call parasitic relationship. Is that clear? This one benefits both organisms that are involved. But this one, only one organism is benefiting, whereas the other person is suffering or is having harm. Is that clear? So parasites are organisms that live in. They can live inside another organism or on it. You understand? If they live in, they call them what? Endoparasites. They call them what? Endoparasite. But if they live on, they call them what? Ectoparasite. So parasites are organisms that live in or on other organisms. So that organism that are living on is known as the word host. It's known as the word host. So they stay on they live in the host or on the host for food and or what? Shelter. So they can be there benefiting the food or shelter, thereby causing what? Disease or harm to the what? Host. They cause disease and harm to the host. The example is hookworm. You know that worm that stays in the stomach or in the body? That one will be eating your nutrients. If you eat food, they will eat from there. You understand? But what are you benefiting from the worm? Nothing. It will give you disease. Small time your stomach will start paining you or your legs. Is that clear? So such organisms are known as what? Parasites. Another example is flea or tick. All those things, bed bug. They will be feeding from you, but they are not adding anything to your living. They are known as what? Parasites. But the organisms that feed from you at the same time add to your living, they are known as what? Symbionts. They are known as what? Symbionts. Whereas the organisms that feed on other smaller organisms are known as what? Predators. Can you see these various ways of getting food? Can you see them? Is that clear? So those are the functions of water. Yes, welcome. Today we are starting a new topic known as transport system. Known as what? Transport system. We said in biology that we have 4 levels of life. 4 levels, isn't it? Number 1 is the cell. Number 1 is the what? Cell. Number 2 is the tissue. Number 2 is the what? Tissue. Number 3 is the organ. Number 3 is the what? Organ. And number 4 is the what? System. Each of these units of life, or each of these stages of life, or each of these complexity in life can exist. You understand? You have some animals that are and plants that are existing in cell level. Give me an example. Amoeba. You understand? They are existing in cell level. You understand? They will have some tissues in the body. Give me an example. There are tissues in the body, isn't it? The bone tissue and some other tissues in the body, isn't it? Then there are some what? Organs. What are the organs? Give me an example. When tissues come together, they form organs, you know. The organ for eye is what? The organ for seeing is what? So this is an organ, isn't it? This is another organ. What's this organ responsible for? How is this organ responsible for? Testing, isn't it? So those are organs. Now, when organs come together, you get what we call what? You get what we call what? System. And what are the systems in the body? Digestive system, transportation system, respiratory system. There are plenty systems, isn't it? So today we are going to pick out one of those systems, and one of those systems is what? Transport system, transportation system. It's not like the transport that you drive from Abuja to Kano, is it? It's inside the body. How the blood is flowing. The blood is transporting, isn't it? It flows. When you took something on your skin, now you see blood coming out. That means that blood was flowing inside something that you now cut and you now start coming out, isn't it? So that is what we call transportation. So when the blood is transporting, it's carrying something. It's carrying maybe oxygen or food from one part of the body to the part that needs it. Is that clear? That is transport system. So by way of that, we will now say that the movement of substances from one part of the body of an organism to the other part, it stands what? Transportation. It stands what? Transportation. So that's what is transportation in biology. It's different from the transportation in real life, isn't it? Like driving from Kano to Enugu. This one is simply the word movement of what? Substances from one part of the body to the what? Another. Is that clear? Now, we say that materials such as carbon dioxide, what are those materials that move? What are those materials that move from one place of the body to the other? What are they? They are materials like what? Carbon dioxide, oxygen, nutrients, and digested what? Food. So these materials need to be what? Transported. Also are waste products. You need to transport the waste, isn't it? From the body so that you can remove it from the body, isn't it? Also are what? Waste products, hormones, urea, salt, and what? Antibodies. All these things need to be transported. Is that clear? Now, and if somebody will now ask you, what are the needs for transportation? Why would you want to transport? Number one, transportation is necessary in order to ensure that materials are carried from one part of the body to the what? From one part where they are produced or obtained to the part where they are what? Used or removed. Is that clear? If you have physics in your stomach, you need to take it down so that it will go out. Is it not? Is it not? You have urea in your system. You need to get it to the bladder back so that it can do what? Go out. Then if you have oxygen here and your brain needs oxygen, you know that your brain needs oxygen. It has to be transported to your brain. If your brain is not getting enough oxygen, what will you do? You might faint and collapse. Is it not? So you need oxygen. Then carbon dioxide needs to come out. Is it not? It needs to be transported so that it will do what? Come out. So can you see those things that need to be transported? So you transport from where they are produced to where they are needed. Is it not? Good. So what are the other reasons why we transport? We've mentioned one, isn't it? Number two is that small organisms with large surface area right along. Small organisms with large surface area to volume ratio. Employ simple process of diffusion. Is that clear? For the movement of materials in and out of them. For the movement of materials in and out of them. Also, we have that in this number 3, multicell. In multicellular organisms, diffusion is inadequate. Diffusion alone cannot do the work in multicellular organisms. Because of what? Because they possess a small body surface relative, a small body surface relative to their large volume. This is because large quantities of nutrients and materials have to be transported over long distance within the body. So we now say that surface area to volume ratio dictates the type of transport that will take place in an organism. So those are important facts that you should know. That is why we have transport system. These reasons are why we have transport system. Number one, I've said you need to move materials from one point where they are produced to the point where they are what? where they are needed or removed. Are we together on this? Good. So we say that the first need, the first reason why there has to be transportation in the body is that materials has to be moved from where they are produced to where they are needed, isn't it? Then secondly, small organisms, like, who can give me an example of a small organism? You know the one, who can tell me the one that looks like this? Which one looks like this? Para what? Paramecium, isn't it? Which one looks like this? Which one? Uglina. You know the one they call Uglina? Yes. Which one looks better than the one where no get shape, is it not? Good. So all these are called unicellular organisms. All of them are called what? Unicellular organism or small organism. They have one cell. They are existing in the cell level, isn't it? Isn't it? Human beings are existing in what? Multicellular. You understand? This one is only one cell. Human being is the only one cell that is a human being. Human being have plenty cells that form what? Tissue. Plenty tissue that form what? Organ. Plenty organ. It's not only one organ. We have organ that now form the what? System. And human beings still have plenty system that make up the human being. It's the only one system that we have. We have respiratory, transportation, and other systems. Is that clear? Now, in this kind of animals, there is no need for transportation. Is that clear? There is no need for full-blown transportation. What they use is what they call diffusion. You understand? Anything they need will just fall on top of their body, and they're already using it. Because they have what we call large surface area to volume ratio. Is that clear? Their volume is very small, but their area is what? Big. You understand? But for us that are human beings, our volume is big compared to our surface area. So we need something that will not transport those things. You understand? So we need extensive transportation. Is that clear? So these small organisms, they don't need full-blown transportation system. You understand? They use just simple diffusion. If they need oxygen, oxygen that is in the sky will just fall on their body. It's already okay for them. Do they need veins and arteries to be transporting the blood? Do they need it? They don't need it because their body is open there. So that's why we say small organisms with large surface area to volume ratio employ simple processes of what? Diffusion for the movement of materials in and out of them. Is that clear? Now, multicellular organisms like us, you understand? Diffusion is what? Inadequate. Inadequate simply means it's not enough. Is that clear? Diffusion is inadequate because they possess small body surface relative to their what? Large what? Value. Is that clear? Now, the last fact says that surface area to volume ratio dictates the type of what? Transport that will take place in organism. Is that clear? Surface area to the volume ratio, that's what determines. So for an organism that is having very high surface area to volume ratio, what type of way will it spread this material? The one that has high surface to volume ratio, it will use what? Diffusion. The one that has very small surface to volume ratio, we use what? We use what? Transport system. Is that clear? Is that clear? So now we are going to look at advantages of transportation. Advantages of transportation. What are the advantages of the transport system? What are the advantages of the transport system in the body? Number one, it helps in the supply of materials for cell metabolism. it helps in the supply of materials for cell metabolism. That's the number one. That's the number one advantage. Number two, waste products are removed. Number two is that waste products are removed. You understand? In transportation, you can easily remove what? Waste products. Now, what are the materials that are used, that are transported? Materials for transportation. So Jamb will ask you, which of the following materials is not transported in organisms? So you need to know this material. So this material include, number one, oxygen. I've mentioned these materials before, isn't it? You need to know all these materials because they will tell you which of the following materials is not transported. You need to know the ones that are transported. Oxygen, amino acid, glucose, fatty acid, and glycerol, carbon dioxide, nitrogenous waste, water, hormones, vitamins, antioxidants, and inorganic salts. So these are the materials that you transport. Is that clear? Now, media of transportation. What do you use in doing this transportation? Media of what? Transportation. What are the things that carry these things to travel? We note that materials are always transported in liquid form. Is that clear? Every transport you have to do has to be in liquid form or in liquid media. So what is this liquid media that transports? Unicellular organisms do so through protoplasm, plants through cell sap, higher animals through blood and lymphatic systems. So, media of transportation, we say that materials are always transported in liquid what? Media. So how is this liquid media? Who and who does what for what? Now, we note that unicellular organisms, what is their transport media? What carries all these things for them that we mentioned? Their oxygen, their amino acid. What carries them? What carries them is their what we call protoplasm. That's their transport media. Plants. What transports for plants? Cell what? Cell sap. That's what does transport for plants. Higher animals like human beings. Do you know what transports for them? Blood. That's what you use in transporting your oxygen. Blood and what we call, some of them use what we call lymphatic system. Is that clear? So better you know that. So please, on top of this, write organism. Are you seeing this? Then what? Here will be what? Media for what? Transport. So you now know. Jamb is going to ask you, what is the media of transport for plants? What will be the answer? They will write blood, they will have lymphatic cells and all those things. You should know that you should pick what cells are. What is the transport media for unicellular organisms like euglena and all the rest of them? Protoplasm. What's the transport system for animals, higher animals? Blood and lymphatic system. Is that clear? So what are those things that are being transported? Oxygen, good. Carbon dioxide and the rest of it. Yes, welcome. Today we are going to be looking at the circulatory system. Circulatory system or mammalian circulatory system or what? Mammalian. What do you mean by mammalian? Mammals, isn't it? Circulation in mammals. Now, we say that in higher organisms, in higher animals, and we know that a very good example of higher animal is what? Mammals. What is the medium for transportation? Blood, isn't it? Blood. To transport oxygen from where oxygen is produced to other parts of the body like the brain, the legs and everywhere. You understand? You need to transport it using the what? Using the what? Blood. Is that clear? So now we say that in all vertebrates, blood is red. What is the color of your blood when it comes out? Red, isn't it? So we are having red blood, but other things have blood that are not red. Now we see in all vertebrates, blood is what? Red in color, but it could be what? Green, brown, or what? Colorless in invertebrates. Is that clear? You know that mammals, you know that there are vertebrates and invertebrates, isn't it? Vertebrates are those ones that have what? That have what? Backbone, isn't it? The ones that don't have are known as what? Invertebrates. So it's telling us that the ones that have backbone, that their blood is normally what? Their blood is normally what? Red. The ones that don't have, their blood could be what color? Is that clear? Circulatory system is the system that ensures that blood flows around our body, is it not? Through the arteries and veins. Through the arteries and what? The heart is where most job is done. Is that clear? So one of the vessels carry blood to the what? Heart, whereas the other one carry blood what? Out from the heart. We are going to find out the vessel, whether it is the artery or the what? Whether it is the artery or the what? So this circulatory system that is made up of the heart and the blood vessels. Whenever you hear circulatory system, you know we are talking about the what? The heart, the blood vessels, and the blood itself, isn't it? Now, this circulatory system could be closed or what? Open. It could be what? Closed or open. How do you know a closed or open system? The closed system is made up of the blood, which has no contact, which has no what? Direct contact with the body cells. That is, the blood is confined in the what? Blood vessels. Is that clear? In human beings, where do the blood flow? Yeah, those are the blood vessels, isn't it? Good. But we have another case where we call the what? Where we call the what? Open system. In open system, blood vessels end up in blood what? Spaces, known as what? Hemicles. You understand? So whenever you have blood vessel ending up in what we call blood space or hemicule, then we know we are having what kind of system? open system. Blood comes out into the homocause and then flows over body cells, tissues and organs directly before it returns to the what? Heart. Understand? So when such thing happen, you know we are talking about open system. But when you have the blood flowing inside the what? Only the blood vessels, you know we have what we call what? Exactly. So now, before we go on to draw the circulatory system, we are going to look at these blood vessels. We are going to look at the what? We are going to look at the what?
Blood vessels.
These blood vessels. And I told us that the blood vessels that we have the what? Arteries and what? Arteries and veins. So what do the arteries do? So look at what the arteries do. Arteries, they are thick walled structures which always do what? Carry blood away from the heart. That's what arteries do. Away from where? So the one that carries blood to the heart is known as what? Veins, isn't it? So another property of the arteries is that its outer layer is fibrous. Its outer layer is fibrous. Protective layer. It has a fibrous protective layer and you should also know that there are no valves in the artery except near the heart. There are no valves in the artery except near the heart. They divide and become smaller as they leave the heart to form arteries. As they leave the heart to form arterioles. So the smaller artery is known as what? Arterioles. Is that clear? So that is one blood vessel, the arteries. That is one blood vessel known as the artery. Now we're going to look at another blood vessel known as the capillaries. Look at another blood vessel known as the what? Capillaries. Capillar. This is ES. What are capillaries? These are tiny. They are tiny. They are not as big as the arteries and veins. They are tiny blood vessels whose wall are 1 cell deep. Tiny blood vessels whose wall are 1 cell deep. Their permeability makes it easy for substances. Their permeability makes it easy for substances like oxygen, hormones, carbon dioxide, urea, and dissolved food to pass. So that's actually where food pass. To pass in and out of them. That's the capillary. So if they ask you which blood vessel is where food and other things pass in and out of the blood, you know it's the capillary. Another third thing you need to know about the capillary is that they can also allow the passage of white cells, or we call it the white blood cells. Now if you look at another blood vessel known as the veins, known as what? Veins. The three blood vessels that we have, the arteries, capillaries, and the what? Veins. So what do veins do? Veins are known to carry what? To carry blood to the what? Heart. You said that arteries carry blood away from the heart, is it not? The veins carry the blood to the heart. They connect the capillary or the capillaries in minute. They connect the capillary in minute venule. So that means that the smaller vein is known as venule before the main vein. Is that clear? Yes. And veins have steady and low blood pressure than the arteries. So number 3 fact, the last fact about them is that they do what? Veins have lower and what? Steadier blood pressure than the arteries. So we are going to draw this circulatory system so that you see all these things that we are explaining. Is that clear? Put it in diagram. Yes, hello, welcome. Today we are going to be looking at respiration. We are going to be looking at what? Respiration. The act of taking in what? Air. Taking in what? Air. You understand? During respiration, animals or human beings or living things take in what? Air. In order to supply oxygen. You know oxygen is one of the components of air. They take in oxygen so as to burn the glucose or the starch inside them. You understand? And when this glucose or starch is burnt or oxidized, energy is produced. What is produced? Then you give out what? Carbon dioxide. You breathe out what? So that process of taking in oxygen or air to burn the food that we've eaten to produce energy and give out carbon dioxide is known as what? Respiration. It's known as what? Respiration. Is that clear? So we can say that respiration is the process by which glucose is what? Oxidized. Glucose is one component of our food. It's one component of our what? Carbohydrate. The end point of carbohydrate is glucose. So when this glucose is oxidized, in order to release what? Energy. As well as what? Water and carbon what? carbon dioxide. These are the end products of what? Respiration. So this is glucose. So when you breathe in your air supplies what? Oxygen. Oxygen oxidizes the glucose to give us what? Carbon dioxide and water, and also what? Energy. What do you use this energy to do? Energy in form of ATP. That's the energy I am using to talk now. You understand? If I don't have energy, can I talk? Can I walk? Can I dance? Can I teach you? I have to have energy. So how can I have this energy? When I go and eat food, you understand? During digestion, my food, the carbohydrate I've eaten will be turned toward glucose. So now when I go and breathe, when I breathe through respiration, that glucose inside my body will do what? Will oxidize and produce what? Energy, so that I can do things. So without respiration, you cannot have what? Energy. So you need respiration to have energy. Is that clear? So when they ask you what respiration is not just taking in oxygen and breathing out carbohydrate. It involves the what? Oxidizing of what? Glucose to produce what? Energy. That's the whole essence of respiration. Oxidizing glucose to produce what? Energy. Is that clear? Do you understand it?
Yes.
So we say that respiration is the process by which glucose is oxidized in order to release what? Energy, as well as what? Water and what? Carbon dioxide. So this is the equation of respiration. Can you see the equation of respiration?
Yes.
This is what? Glucose. This is what? Glucose. And this is what? Oxygen. And what supplies this oxygen? What supplies it? Air. You understand? So when there is oxidation of glucose, you produce what? Energy. Then the byproducts are what? Carbon dioxide and water. So it involves breathing in air that supplies what? The oxygen. While breathing out what? Carbon dioxide, which is what? One of the what? Byproduct of what? Respiration. Jamb will ask you, which of the following is a byproduct of respiration? They will say sulfur, carbon dioxide, potassium, oxygen. What would be the answer? Carbon dioxide. That is the byproduct of what? And you are supposed to know this equation. They will write this equation and say, which equation is this? You should know that it's what? Respiration equation. Now, this occurs inside tiny organelle called what? Mitochondria. You understand? The burning of glucose to produce oxygen during respiration happens where? Where does it happen in the cell? Inside the what? Mitochondria. Inside the what? Mitochondria. Uses of energy released during respiration. What are the things you can use energy that you release during respiration to do? Dancing. This is mechanical action. This is what? So mechanical energy that is released for the movement of the what? Organism. Understand? You use the energy to move. Mechanical movement. You understand? Sound energy for animals that make noise. If they don't eat food, they cannot be able to make noise. You see all those animals making noise. They're using energy to do what? Make the noise. Electrical energy for defense are seen in catfish. There's one fish that they call catfish. When you touch it, it will shock you. Because it has electrical energy. That energy can be supplied through what? Respiration. Through what? Respiration. Now we have light energy for phosphorescent organisms. There are some organisms that when they are moving, they will be shining in the night.
Yes.
Call them what? Fireflies. Call them what? Fireflies. Without energy, can they do that? They need energy from respiration. Heat energy to keep the body temperature in order. You understand? When you go to hospital, they check your temperature to see whether it's in order. You understand? So you need heat to supply the energy for the temperature to be in order. Chemical energy for process within the tissue. There are a lot of processes that are going on in your body. You understand? Your tissues, they need energy to perform such processes. So how can you get those energy? By the energy supplied during what? Respiration. During what? This is very clever. Good. So we'll continue from there. Yes, we are going to be looking at two types of respiration that we have. The aerobic and what? Anaerobic respiration. The aerobic and what? Anaerobic respiration. Two types of respiration are aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. One needs oxygen. One needs what? The other one is absence of oxygen. The other one does not need oxygen. You understand? That's how you know these two types of respiration. One needs oxygen and the other one does not need what? Aerobic respiration happens in the presence of oxygen. anaerobic respiration happens in the absence of what? Oxygen. So what happens in aerobic respiration? Here, food substrate glucose. I told you that respiration simply means burning glucose to form energy. Right? So here, food substrate in bracket glucose is broken down in the presence of what? Oxygen. Very, very important. To release what? Carbon dioxide, water, and what? Energy. And this is the equation. Glucose plus oxygen to give carbon dioxide, water, and what? Energy. The second stage of anaerobic respiration involves the composition of two molecules of what? ATP to supply energy. And it is controlled by many enzymes to form NADH. You understand? Anaerobic respiration here, food substances are broken down into what? Carbon dioxide and what? Alcanol. And what? Alcanol. In the absence of what? Oxygen. And it's also called what? Fermentation. Fermentation, you understand? Your wine ferment. All fermentation, all those things happen in the absence of what? Oxygen. And this is the question. Glucose giving what? Alcohol and what? Carbon dioxide and little energy as well. You understand? So take note of these two types of respiration. One that occurs in the presence of oxygen and the other one in the absence of what? Oxygen. Is that clear? Yes, welcome. Now we are going to be looking at respiratory organs and what? Surfaces. What are those organs that animals and plants use in respiration? Jamb is going to ask you, which of the following is not a respiratory organ of flowering plants? And they are going to write stomata, lenticels, root hair cell, and lungs. Which one will be the answer? Lungs, because lungs are no respiratory organs for what? Flowering plants. Lung is the respiratory system for animals such as what? Mammals, human being. Like me and you, we are using the lungs for what? Respiration. Apes, birds, all these birds that are flying, they are using what? Lungs for respiration. Reptiles, lizard, all of them, all those reptiles, they are using also lungs. So those are the ones that are using what? Lungs. But flowering plants are using what? Stomata, lenticels, and what? Root hair cells. So very, very important. You need to know the what? Respiratory organ or what? Surface for what? All the different kinds of animals. You find out that most terrestrial animals, what are terrestrial animals? Animals that live on land, terrestrial animals, most of them are using lungs. You can see that, but the aquatic animals, they are using their what? Skin and gills. You understand? Let's say example, tadpoles, fishes. You know fish that swim in water. What do they use? They use what we call gills. Gills. That thing are the size of the fish when you are killing the fish. You understand? That's what they use in respiration. So they use what? Gills, and they are aquatic. They stay in water. Earthworm, frogs, and toads. They use their what? Mouth. They also use their what? Skin, and use their what? Lungs. And they are what? Either aquatic or what? Terrestrial or must-be. They can move between. So earthworm, frogs, and toads use mouth, skin, and what? Lungs. Is that clear? Arthropods are insects. Arthropods are what? Insects. What do they use for respiration? They use their trachea what? System. Insects use their trachea system. Insects use their what? Trachea system to respirate. Now we talk about arachnids. Arachnids are spiders. Arachnids are what? Spiders. What do spiders use for respiration? They use lung books. They use what? Lung books. Then unicellular organisms are organisms that are made up of one cell. They are very small. They are microscopic. You can only see them using microscope. What do those ones use for respiration? Mostly they are aquatic. They use cell membrane or what? Body surface. Example of those unicellular organisms are what? Amoeba and what? Paramecium. Amoeba and what? Paramecium. This is A. Amoeba and what? Paramecium. Both of them use what? Cell membrane or what? Body surface, because they are very small. So they use the whole of the cell membrane body surface to do what? Respirate. So very, very important. This is what Jamb will ask you this question. They will ask you, which of the following respiratory organ or surface is used by arachnids or spiders? Is used by spiders. They are going to give you lungs, they will give you trachea system, they will give you gills, and they will give you lung books. What is the answer? Lung books, that's what spiders use. You understand? Reptiles use lungs. Birds use lungs. Mammals like man use lungs. Anthropods like insects, they use what? Tracheal system. Earthworm, frogs and toads use mouth, skin and what? Lungs. Tadpoles, fishes, mollusks, crustaceans, all those sea animals, they use what? Gills. You understand? Sea animals mostly they use gills. Unicellular organisms like amoeba and paramecium use what? Cell membrane or what? Body surface. Mammals like human beings use what? Lungs. Flowering animals use what? Stomata, lenticels and what? Root hair cells. You understand? So the place they are staying affects what they are using for respiration. The ones that are living on the land, terrestrial animals, most of them are using lungs. You understand? Lung books. Whereas the ones in aquatic, most of them are using gills. What you understand? Their skin and mouth, and also very very important, unicellular organisms. They use their what? Cell membrane and what? Body surface. You understand? So you need to learn about respiratory organs and surfaces. Very very important. It's in the Jamb syllabus. Jamb syllabus, and they are bringing it even in Waec and Ecology. Exactly. Yes, welcome. Today we are going to be looking at excretory system. Excretory system. The process by which you remove waste products from your body. Those things that your body don't need to remove them. Those things that you eat in excess, you need to remove them. Those things that are toxic to your internal body, you need to remove them. Those waste that your body produces during metabolic activities, you need to do what? Remove them, so that your body can maintain normal steady balance in order for the cells inside your body to perform effectively. Exactly. So the system that helps you to remove all these waste products is known as the what? Excretory system. It's known as the what? So excretory system or excretion is the removal of metabolic waste products from the body of a living organism. That is what excretion is. The removal of what? Metabolic waste products from the body of a living what? Organism. An example of living organism near you, is it not? Even plants. Plants and animals, they excrete. So when you say excrete or excretion, it simply means what? Removal of what? Metabolic waste. What is a metabolic waste? Metabolic waste are those byproducts that you produce when the body undergoes some functions like respiration. When you respire, what is the waste that you produce when you do respiration? Carbon dioxide. You understand? If you leave carbon dioxide inside the body, it will form carbonic acid and start and it will disrupt the acidic balance of the body. The body has a pH. Do you know what a pH is? The acid-base balance. You understand? So if you have too much acid, the body will be too acidic and the cells will not function well. So you need to remove those acids. And one of the things that can cause acid is the what? Carbon dioxide, which can form carbonic acid. During urination, you bring out what we call urea. Urea is from amino acids and it's not good for the body. You understand? Urea is one of the most toxic substances in the body. So you need to get it out through urination from the kidney. Is that clear? So taking out all these waste products from the body is known as what? Excretion. Excretion is the removal of metabolic waste products from the body of living organisms. What are the sources of this waste product? From where can you get waste product? Number one, through the unwanted materials present in the food which are absorbed by the body. When you are eating now, do you know that there are some things that when you eat, if you want to defecate, you see them come out. They were not able to be dissolved. You understand? Those things are not supposed to be in your body. You understand? So that can constitute a waste product. Also, we have byproducts formed during metabolic processes of the body, which I have explained. Byproducts like carbon dioxide. Yes, so I was saying the waste products could be from unwanted materials present in the food which are absorbed by the body. It can also be from the byproducts formed during metabolic processes of the body. And I told us what metabolic processes of the body are. You understand? Like the products that we can get through that is example is the urea, carbon dioxide, all those unwanted substances. Then thirdly is what? Excess food substance which cannot be what? Stored in the body. When you eat excessively, you understand? And the body has already absorbed the ones that it needs. The excess, you excrete them. Now, these waste products consist of carbon dioxide, urea, which is the most toxic substance and is done from what? Amino acid. Excess water. See, excess water is not needed. You need water in the body, but you don't need excess. So how do you get it out? During when you urinate, is it not? Or when you sweat? Excess heat. Is excess heat good for the body? It's not. When you go to the hospital, if you're sick, they'll take your temperature. You understand? So see whether your body is producing excess heat. Naturally, the body has an internal temperature balance that it needs. So when the heat is too much, it has to be taken out. The removal of all these ensures balance in the what? Systems pH. That's the acid-base balance. Systems for temperature. Systems concentration of what? Solute. And ensures the best balanced internal environment for cells in multicellular organisms to thrive, devoid of what? Toxic substances. So when you remove all these things, you will not have any toxic substance in your body. Your body will function very well. Your body temperature will be okay. You understand? Your body acid base level will be okay. Your body dissolved solute concentration will be okay. So you function very well as a normal human being. So you need to understand that excretion is what? The removal of metabolic waste products from the body of a living organism. And this metabolic waste can come from what? Unwanted material present in the food which are absorbed by the body, byproducts formed during metabolic processes of the body, excess food substance which cannot be stored in the body. You understand? An example of these toxic wastes are what? Carbon dioxide, urea, excess water, excess heat. You understand? Take all of them out so that your body pH will be okay, your body temperature will be okay, your body concentration of solute will be okay, and the cells in your body can work very effectively, devoid of any form of toxic materials. Is that clear? So in subsequent classes, we'll learn about different organisms and what they use in this way. Thank you. Manual. Yes, we're going to be looking at the excretory organs or structures of the various organisms and the kind of waste product that they give out. Exactly. Jamb is going to ask you, which of the following is not a waste product of plants? They will give gum, tannins, alkaloids, mucilage, lipids, and urea. Which one will be the answer? Urea, because urea is not an excreted product for plants. The T is for vertebrates. Can you see urea here? The T is for vertebrates. Protozoa, do they excrete urea? Flatworms, do they excrete urea? So urea is for what? Vertebrates. You understand? That is the question. That is how the questions are going to come from Jamb. Which of the following is the excretory structure or organ for flatworm? They will give you nephridia, contractile vacuole, and kidney, and also flex cells. What is the answer? What is the answer? Which of the following is the excretory organ or structure for flatworm? They will give you nephridia, Mappia tubo, contractile vacuole, and flex cell. What is the answer? Flex cell. All the notes I'm giving you, make sure you're reading them. Those are the places where the exams are going to come out from. So make sure you pay adequate attention. So today we're going to be looking at organisms, excretory structures, and what? Products. Excretory structure simply means where the waste is coming out from. You understand? The organ in the body that enables the waste to come out.
Facebook not responding. I've closed them.
Excretory structure is the organ that enables the what? The product, the waste product to come out. And waste product is the actual waste that is coming out. So now, please, we look at ecology. Ecology simply means the science, the study of organisms in relation to their environment. Organisms in relation to their what? Fishes, they stay in water. You understand? Their aquatic environment. When you study how they survive, how they're able to cope in water, which is their environment, then you're studying their ecology. You're studying their what? And that's why we say that ecology is the practical science that studies the environment of living organisms and how living organisms are what? Distributed, finding out how they depend on one another. Of importance is habitat. Is what? Habitat. Habitat is simply the place where an organism do what? Lives. That very place is living is known as its own what? Habitat. Now, the habitat of caterpillar is the plant on which the caterpillar lives on. It could be small, e.g. the food canal. You know your food canal. You know that there are some parasites living inside it. That is their habitat. That is their what? The food canal of mammal is the host of which organism? Roundworm. You understand? So the roundworm has its habitat as what? Food canal of mammals. Also, you can also have something like the savannah where zebra live. Zebra, you know the animal called zebra. They live in savannah. That savannah is their what? Habitat. Types of habitat. Like I said, habitat could be inside water. We call it aquatic. You understand? On the crust, like we are living, all of us. Call it terrestrial. Call it what? Then we also have the one called arboreal, which are places like the tree trunks and the tree what? Tops. Is that clear? Aquatic habitats are things like freshwater ponds, streams, flooded rice fields, puddles. You understand? Anything that relates to water. Whereas terrestrial is things like bush, farmland, rainforest, and what? Desert. Then we look at niche. Niche is that particular place in your habitat where you stay. You understand? If this is my habitat and I'm staying only in one room inside the whole house, that is my niche. That is my what? Niche, a particular place in the habitat where you stay. This is the particular part of the habitat where an organism is confined to. E.g., the caterpillar lives mainly on the leaves of plants. You understand? The caterpillar does not live in every part of the plant, only on the what? Leaves. And that leaves is the what? Niche. That leaves is the leaves is the what? Niche. The leaves are the niche of the very caterpillar. And that's where it feeds on. Is that clear? Yes. Another animal known as Affliate lives on the long shoot and sucks sap from it. Mostly, they stay in the niche where they can easily feed, where they can easily what? Feed from. Population, very, very important when studying ecology. Population are all organisms of the same kind living together in the same what? Habitat. If you go to water, you look at tilapia fish. You know, tilapia fishes, all of them are the same. Yes. So if you take all of them together, then you're talking about their what? Population. They must be animal of the same kind. Yes. If you're doing population of human beings, do you go and count cattle or cows or goats? Do you do that? It's only human being, because it must be organisms of the same what? Kind. Organisms of the same what? So whenever you're talking about population, you're talking about organisms of the same kind. Unlike when you're talking about community. You understand? Community is different kinds of organisms brought together, staying in one geographical area. Is that clear? Whereas population is talking about organisms of the same kind. Are you noting the difference? Like example, when you talk about mango trees in a school compound, you're talking about population of the mango trees in a school compound. You go and count them. Is that clear? Population of mango trees in a school compound. Population of tilapia fish in a stream, or population of swarm of bees in a tree. You understand? A particular tree, you're counting the numbers to know the population of bees there. You understand? It must be organism of the same what? Kind. Now you talk about community. Community is made up of all populations. Are you saying it? Living of living organisms that exist together in a habitat. So let's say the habitat is school compound. You understand? So what community are you talking about in a school compound? You're talking about other animals that are staying in that school compound, is it not? Yes. It mustn't be organisms of the same type. Yes. And that's what we'll talk about when we take example of a community is a freshwater pond community. In a freshwater, what do you see in freshwater? You're going to see microorganisms like algae inside it, is it not? You're going to see fishes, snail inside freshwater, is it not? And you're also going to see plants growing in the water. Haven't you seen floating plants? Yes. When you go to the village? So that is a community. Both plants, animal, microorganisms. Is that clear? So basically, community is making up of different populations that are brought together. Is that clear? Yes. Do you understand this? Yes. So whenever you're talking about ecology, you're talking about organisms and their what? Organisms and their what? Habitat is the place where organisms are staying. Yes. Niche is that particular point in the habitat where the organism is staying. Is that clear? Types of habitats, we have the water, the ones in water known as aquatic, the ones on land known as what? Terrestrial, and the ones that stay on tree trunks and tops known as what? Arboreal. Is that clear? Yes. Population, talking about organisms of the same kind. Is that clear? Whereas community, talking about different populations brought together. Are we together on that? Yeah. Yes, welcome. We are looking at ecosystem. Ecosystem. We said that ecology is the study of organisms in relation to their environment. This the environment can be living things or non-living things. You understand? I would say that population is the collection of one type of organism, is it not? Whereas community is where different populations are together. Now, ecosystem is a self-supporting system. You understand? A self-supporting system. Just like me now standing. Am I living in an aquatic environment or terrestrial environment? Terrestrial, because I'm not staying in water, isn't it? But for me to survive, I need to breathe in air, is it not? Air, is it living or non-living thing? Non-living thing, isn't it? Now, do I need only air for me to survive? I need to drink water. Water, is it living or non-living thing? Do I need only air and water to survive? I need to eat food, isn't it? I need to rear cattle or goats or go and buy from the market, is it not? In order to eat and survive. You understand? So the totality of everything that helps one living being to survive is known as his or her what? Ecosystem. It's known as his or her what? Ecosystem. Good. It has to be self-supported. It has to be what? Self-supported. I need water, I go to the stream and fetch water, isn't it? I need to eat, I need protein. I go harvest my beans, cook it and eat, isn't it? I need carbohydrate, I go fetch my what's it called? Maize. You understand? So all those things, they come together to be self-supporting. They come together to be what? And that's why we say that ecosystem is a self-supporting unit that is made up of living parts, isn't it? As well as what? Non-living parts. And these living parts could be what? Plants and animals, isn't it? You need to feed on plants and animals. Is it not what you feed on? Don't you need to feed on plants and animals? Yes. But is it only food that you need to survive? Don't you need to breathe in air and take in water? Non-living things, you also need them to survive, is it not? Yes. You need the temperature from the sun to survive too. If everywhere is very cold, will you survive? You suffer from pneumonia, is it not? So you need totality of both living and non-living things for you to do what? Survive. And that is what we call what? Ecosystem. Ecosystem is a self-supporting unit that is made up of living parts. And these living parts are known as what? Biotic factors. Examples are what? Plants and animals. And also non-living parts. Non-living parts are known as what? Abiotic factors. And examples are what? Water, soil where we grow our plant, is it not? Yes. Air that we breathe in, temperature to keep our environment warm, water current, turbidity, and the rest of them. Is that clear? Yes. Now we look at biomes. We said Ecology could be aquatic or what? Terrestrial, is it not? Yes. Or even arboreal. Then we talk about when there is a large natural terrestrial ecosystem. Terrestrial is not aquatic, is it not? Yes. Terrestrial is on the land, is it not? When you have a large natural one, we call it what? Biome. Call it biome. Example is the equatorial or tropical regions and temperate regions. Who can tell me where is equatorial regions are? Equatorial regions are those regions where the temperatures are high. Example is in Nigeria. Yes. Sub-Saharan Africa, all of them have high temperature. You understand? Temperate region are those regions where the temperatures are very low. Example is where? Where? Europe. When you go to Europe, the temperature there is. Do we have winter in Nigeria? No, sir. But we have it in Europe now. Yes, sir. Snow will start falling. Yes. They have very low temperature. Those people with very low temperature, we call them what? Temperate regions. Whereas the people with high temperature like us here, we call it what? Equatorial or tropical region. Is that clear? Yes, so those are the two major biomes that we have. Is that clear? Now we talk about climax community. I told us that community is made up of different populations. It's made up of what? Different populations. It could be human beings, it could be plants, it could be other animals. You understand? Now, if you have a population that have a community that have remained the same in its composition and size over a long period of time, we call it what? Climax community. When there is flooding, what happens to farmland? Who can tell me what happens? Flooding. It will destroy the farmland, is it not? So the population there will be destroyed, is it not? If you have mainly an ogo, what will happen to those ogo? It will be destroyed. So the population will not stay for so long. But if there is nothing like flooding, nothing like fire, if there is fire outbreak in a farmland or in a place, what will happen? The population there will also be destroyed, is it not? But take an instance where there is nothing like that. The population will stay the same for a very long time. And you call such population what? You call such community what? Termites, because it has not been destroyed. It has stayed the same. The size has been the same. Nothing has destroyed some part of it. You understand? And the composition. Now, if you have a community that was made up of human beings, all of a sudden there is earthquake there. Will human beings stay where there is earthquake? No. They will go. Another community will replace there, another population. So that community will not be made up of the same kind again. It might not have other animals. Wildlife, is it not? Human beings will do what? Move out. So we say that a community that remains the same in what? Composition. Composition means the type of population that is in that community. And size, that's numbers, isn't it? So once a community has remained the same in composition and size, over a long period of time, we call it what? Climax community. It is the maximum community that a given habitat can support. Example is a mature forest or grassland. Mature forest simply means forest that has been there for a very long time. That is a climax community. When there is afforestation, when people come and start cutting timber from the forest, what will happen? The community there will be destroyed. It's not. Then you are not going to have climax community. But the destruction or step-by-step changing of this community is what we call what? Succession. Is what we call what? Succession. So what is succession? Succession is the step-by-step, orderly and gradual replacement of communities that leads to a what? Climax community. So when you replace a community with another community, we call it what? Succession. So let's say a place where people are living, all of a sudden there is very great earthquake there. Will people be there? That population of human being will go out, but another population of maybe wild animal will replace it. That is what we call succession. That is what we call what? Replacement of a former community that was there with another one. That is what? Succession. Succession is the what? Step-by-step, orderly or gradual replacement of communities that leads to what? Climax community. There are two types of succession. We have what we call primary succession and what? Secondary succession. Primary succession occurs in an area where no community existed before, and it involves the formation of what? New soil. E.g., when a large rocky slope changes eventually to a what? Forest. A land that was rocky before, no plants, all of a sudden it changes to a what? Forest. You understand? We call that type of succession what? Primary succession. Example, when a shallow lake is filled up with vegetation and then turns into meshes and then into what? Forest. We also call such what? Primary succession. From a place where nothing was before to a place where there is something, call it primary. But secondary succession occurs when an existing community on a terrestrial habitat is what? Disturbed. Like the instance I gave you, when there is what? Fire. Or when there is what? Drought. Drought is when there is no water. When there is no water, organisms, what will they do? They will run from that community. They will not stay there. So it will be replaced by things that can, other organisms that can survive in a drought environment, isn't it? When there is also what? Flood. You understand? Or any of these causes what? Secondary succession in place. So you can find secondary succession in places like abandoned farmland, where you now don't have the population of the normal crops that you should have there. You now start having bushes, isn't it? Overgrazed what? Grassland, and also a what? Timber cleared what? Forest. When you remove the forest community there and you bring in another thing, you have a totally different thing. Now you talk about overcrowding. Talk about what? Overcrowding. That's the last concept you are looking at. Overcrowding is simply when a what? Population in a given habitat increases beyond a point where the resources in that habitat are not enough to support all the individual what? Organisms in the population. Overcrowding. In your house, if your house you're living in one room and you have up to 10 children, you understand? They cannot sleep easily in the house because the house which is the resources you're providing for the sleeping, is not enough to take the number of kids you have. Then you have what we call what? Overcrowding. You have what we call what? So naturally in ecology, overcrowding occurs when the number of people, you understand, the size of the population is more than the resources, more than the food they can eat, more than the air they can breathe, more than the amount of water they can fetch to use in washing their clothes and cooking their food. You understand? Once the population is more than the resources to support that population, then you have what we call what? Overcrowding. So overcrowding occurs what? Whenever the population increases beyond a point where resources in the habitat are not enough to do what? Support all the individuals in the population. Factors that affect the population size that could lead to overcrowding or lesser population are things like what? Natality, mortality, immigration, and what? Immigration. Who can tell me what natality means?
Decrease in death rate.
Natality is when you give birth.
Okay.
Whereas mortality is when you do what? Die. Is it not? Natality, you're giving to more population. You're bringing in more offspring. Natality, they are doing what? Die. Mortality is what? Die. Death. Isn't it? Natality, giving birth. You understand? So when there is more natality, it's expected that it will be approaching to what? Isn't it? Whereas when there is more mortality, there will be not even enough population, is it not? Immigration simply means coming in. Immigration simply means what? Going out. So when there is more immigration, will there be overcrowding? No, because people are moving out. But when there is more immigration, will there be overcrowding? Most likely. You understand? So that's why some countries, if they don't have enough people to help them work, their labor force is in short, they will do something like visa lottery. Or places like Canada, Australia, and America, you understand, they do visa lottery, is it not? Because they need more people. There is no overcrowding there. But China will tell you that every family should not give back to more than one child because they are having what? Their population is becoming too much. Not necessarily overcrowding, you understand? But they are having a phenomenon that is similar to that. So they don't want more people. China is not ready to give you visa lottery. They don't encourage immigration into their country. You understand? Rather, they encourage people to go out so that the resources that they have will be enough for them. Exactly. So very, very important to understand the concept of ecosystem, which simply means a unit that is self-supporting, composing of living part, which is known as the biotic part, and what? Abiotic part, which are the non-living part. Human beings need both living and non-living part to live, yeah. Hello, welcome. Today we're going to be looking at genetics, the science of hereditary. Genetic, the science of what? Heredity. Now, when you go for marriage counseling, it's likely that the priest or the pastor will tell you to go for genotype test. To go for what? They want to know whether your genotype is AA or AS. Is that clear? So that if your genotype is AS, you don't go and marry another person that has genotype AS. Because it's likely that you have a kid that has SS. And SS is a secular, isn't it? So you need to go for such. Because of what we call heredity. Because of what we call what? Heredity. What is heredity? Heredity is simply the transmission of character from a parent to the what? Offspring. You understand? If your parent is AS, it's likely that they are going to transmit that very character of X into you, making you to be SS. Is that clear? And thereby you become a sickler. Let's say you are fair in complexion. Fair is a character. You understand? If I have a child and my child is also fair, that means I've transmitted that fair character from me, the parents, to my offspring, the world, my child, isn't it? So all those things that a parent has, all those things that parents have, and it's likely that their kids have, they are known as character. They are known as what? Give me another example of a character. Height. You understand? If you're tall and you marry a tall woman, it's likely that you're going to bear kids that are what? Tall. So the character in question here is the what? Height. Is that clear? Yes. So your ability to transmit those very characters, like your height or your skin complexion, to your child is what we call heredity. It's what we call what? Heredity. So we say that heredity is the transmission of characters from parents to what? Offspring. Through what? Gametes. Through gametes. Because when they meet, when the man and the woman meet, they copulate, they have sexual intercourse, isn't it? So they transfer their genes to their children. Is that clear? So these genes contain what we call what? Character. They contain what? Character. What is character? A character is a distinct structural or what? Functional feature of an organism. You understand? Anything somebody can look at you and be able to identify you with, that is your character. Is that clear? Like your complexion, your skin complexion, your height, you understand? There are other things, plenty characters that you can have in your body, you understand? And these characters can be transmitted from you, being a parent, to your what? Offspring. And the process by which a character is transmitted from parents to offspring is known as what? It's known as what? Heredity. You understand? These characters are contained in the genes. They are contained in what? Genes. You understand? So now we say that a character is the distinct structural or functional feature of an what? Organism. Hereditary is the transmission of characters from parents to what? Offspring. Through what? Gametes. Only characters controlled by genes are what? Inherited. You understand? Only characters that are controlled by the gene. The gene is that basic unit of life that contains a character of a human being, which can be transmitted from the parents to the what? Offspring. So we say that a gene is the basic physical or functional unit of heredity. They are made up of what? DNA. You understand? You're going to be asked in Jamb or Waec, which of the following is a component of the gene? You understand? So you have to know that gene is made up of what? DNA, which acts as instructions to make molecules called what? Proteins. Where can we apply heredity? Why are we learning heredity? Number one, I've said when you're going for counseling, you understand? There's what we call genetic what? Counseling. Because of your gene. It's likely that if you have AS, you are supposed to marry somebody that is AA. You understand? So that during the crossbreeding, you don't produce a sickler. Is that clear? You need to be aware of this so that you don't endanger the life of the offspring that you're going to be bearing. Is that clear? Then in the area of biology and agriculture, there's what we call selective breeding. There's what we call what? Selective breeding. If you have plants and animals that are of high economic value, but you don't have them plenty. You understand? You need to crossbreed them with the ones that are of lesser economic value so that you can bring up their characters. Exactly. Just like you as a human being, if you're very dark in complexion, you want to have kids that are fairer, that are not as dark as you are, and you're a man. When you're going to marry, you should go for a fair woman, is it not? So the knowledge of hereditary, that all those characters and traits that you have in you can actually be passed on to your kids, will advise you in making such decisions whenever you want to marry or when you want to breed animals and plants. Is that clear? So those are the two major areas of application of the principle of hereditary. In the area of selective breeding and the area of what? Genetic what? Counseling. Is that clear? So we're going to be stopping here today. Please, if you like our video, please hit the subscribe button by this side. If you have any questions on this and many more on it, or any video that you want us to work on, please drop it on the comment section. Thank you. God bless. So we are going to look at organisms, excretory structures, and products. Organisms what? Excretory structures and products. Excretory structures are the organs or the structure through which the waste products come out, whereas the products are the actual waste products that come out. So protozoa, what is the excretory structure for protozoa? Contractile what? Vacuole. And what are those waste products that come out from contractile vacuole in protozoa? Water, excess mineral salts, ammonia, and what? Carbon dioxide. Flatworm. What is the excretory structure or organ for flatworm? Phlegm cells. What are the waste products that come out from the phlegm cells? Nitrogenous waste. Earthworm. What is the excretory structure for earthworm? Nephridia. And what are the waste products that come out? Water, urea, carbon dioxide, nitrogenous waste. Insects. What are their excretory organs? Mammalian tubules. And the waste that come out is the what? Uric acid. Vertebrates. What are their excretory structures? Kidney, lungs, liver, and large intestine. What are the waste products that come out? Urine, urea, bile salts, carbon dioxide, sweat, and what? Water. Plants. What are their excretory structures? Stomata, lenticels, leaves, bark of trees, cuts, and what? Pepper. And what are the excretory products that come out from plants? Oxygen, carbon monoxide, tannins, alkaloids, gums, mucilage, lipids, pigments, also known as anthocyanins. So Jamb will expect you to know the excretory structure of the different organisms, and they will ask you which of the following is the excretory structure for earthworm. They will give you phlegm cell, contractile vacuole, kidney, and nephridia. What is the answer? Nephridia. They will ask you which of the following is not an excretory product from vertebrate. They will give you urine, urea, bile salts, tannin. What will be the answer? Tannin, because tannin is from plants. So you have to note the kind of waste products that come out from the organisms as well as their what? Excretory structure. Very, very important. Read the notes and understand it. Thank you.